DRC up to West Africa. So it's a very valuable indigenous species within the savanna parkland. And as we can see here, why Shea? Shea, you can see, there are other people interested in having them on farm. So under carbon credits, can we bring Shea also? You can see the DBH being measured. That's one of the things. Then the first two on the left, these are pictures from West Africa. In West Africa now, people even do mechanization within the Shea parkland. But you can find also there this one where there is a lot of disturbance. You know, when some of this land are now being given to investors, and the investors don't want to see the share because for them, some of this they're interested only in shorter crop, and they cut the share tree. You can see the stool out this, but you can see a lot of activities in the fallow land, in the crop field taking place. So the distribution of share start all along from Uganda here, going through South Sudan, via Ethiopia, up to Benin, Nigeria, up to that, you can see that belt. But in Uganda, we have the zone right from southeastern part of Teso. When you have in Katakwe, some part of Karamoja, when you pass through then to Kapielebiong, Amuria, Lango, Kitgum, up to West Nile, Moyo and Terego, and all those areas entering into the to stand up to East Africa. These are the distribution. Next. So what are the key issues? We have a lot of threat. For example, within Uganda and the neighboring country, South Sudan, there is a lot of internal displacement. So these people who have been keeping share for a longer time, now they're displaced. We don't know what is happening in their area. Then even when they go back, there is new type of settlement. So share is not value anymore. Where there are refugees, these share trees are being cut for charcoal, cut for other things, for opening cropland. So we need action, which is going to work so that we have these trees taken care of. Expansion of agricultural land. We are losing a lot of biodiversity, like the bees, which have a lot of niche in these areas now. They are no longer there, and yet they are very important. Then there is also demand for fieldwood. This is the most threatening one. Most of the shea trees are being cut for charcoal and firewood, which is a very big thing. We have very weak management capacity and effectiveness in the shea parkland. As a result, there's loss of the wildlife corridors, and even this wildlife have now become a threat to the communities neighboring the shea parkland. And this has led to increased poverty and decline in agricultural production, which are serious major threat. Next. However, there are good things also happening. You see, people are now processing nuts into oil. There are also fruits, and this fruit has not been taken care of. We are just at initial stage. When we were in Ghana for Global Shea Alliance, we found that there are even jams or yogurt being made out of these fruits. But for us here, we are just throwing them. We are interested only in nuts. So there is a lot of need for diversification, and then also modification of how we pack our products and how we. Next. I was talking about this. You see, not only in Uganda where we have political insecurity, now in South Sudan, these are our neighbors. They are also bringing, but in Uganda, we had a lot of problem with the load resistance, and that has impacted on our shea parkland seriously, where people have resorted to you see how they're cutting these big trees, which have stayed for over 200 years for charcoal, for a very small thing, for short-term gain. And there are also now pests and diseases which used not to be in the Shea parkland. We are now seeing them being reported. And this has also escalated with the persistent drought and increases in the frequency of wildfires. Next. There are a lot of traditional management practices which are also taking place. You can see people who love the shea trees, they don't cut them totally. Some of these people are lopping so that the branches can come out, and this is one of the ways to sustain it if we cannot plant it, and we need to encourage. But also expansion of urban areas have become a threat. You can look at my left slide on the left down. You can see how the caterpillars uprooted this one, and this one, nobody is planting it anymore. So we need to take action on this. Next. This is the same thing I've already talked about, energy crisis. Go to another slide. We also have inadequate training and inappropriate post-harvest practices and product development. See, people still try this thing on the open ground, and this affects the quality. However, there has been some improvement with the coming of Koval Uganda, the Northern Uganda Shea Processors Association, and many other organizations. Now people have started cold pressing with this machine, and there is improvement. Next. So what can we do to diversify this product so that they are marketable? You see how our package is. Most of these products cannot enter the international market easily. So if we want to improve household income and also the livelihood of people, we need to diversify how we package this product so that they can fetch us better money. Capacity of our communities. Do we really know the capacity? We need something done so that our people can be empowered. Next. Yes, can we move first to improve and sustainable shea production using this product already? People develop oil, others medicine and whatever. These ones, we need to take them up to industrial level, not at domestic level, selling by the roadside like this. The quality problems come in very easily. So we need a lot of intervention in product development so that we can get a lot of products coming from this. Next. There are already conservation practices within the shea parkland. So can we formulate appropriate policies that can take on these on-farm conservation practices which are there? Can we use the children at school because they are the future conservatives of this? Can we bring honey into the system? Can we bring goats? Because under goats, the under shea parkland here, we also have grasses which are very good fodder, legumes. Can we have the goats incorporated in some of these, not in the whole area, but some district can have this, so that then this regenerating one, can we have practices? You can see the last thing here. This is now being affirmative action, caging of the young ones so that they are not destroyed. So we need all this to be together. What about farmers management regeneration? Do we have policies? And are our local government aware of some of these things so that they can incorporate them into their planning program? Next. Do we have capacity? People are crying that share take a long time. But one of the ways to shorten this would be through a vegetative propagation technique like grafting, which you are seeing here. But do we have capacity to do this? Do we have the technologies? If it is there, how can we upscale it so that the communities can start doing this thing? In West Africa now, communities graft this year on their farm themselves. What about us in Uganda? Can we get this done at the local level as we now bring Shea as one of the commodities under Paris development model? Next. Next. Okay. Yes, all this conservation. The other one was also cutting experiment. Can we do that? Then what policies can make our communities not destroy some of these younger regenerating shea trees so that we have sustainability for the future? Next. Thank you very much. This is just an eye-opener. You have to be patient and wait for the professionals who are going to give this. At this juncture, I would like to invite okay. I'm going to invite one of the members of Avas to give some small introduction to the organization that has helped us to put this workshop together. Then after that, we shall have official opening remarks by Professor Francois Omuni University. Thank you very much.
Okay, our dear participants, thank you so much for being patient with us. We have a lockdown, so the level at which we are trying to operate is very, very challenging. My name is Thomas Enuru, and I want to welcome you again. Thank you, Professor JB Okulo, for a very nice overview in terms of understanding the different concepts and also telling us the story of what is happening so far in the country as far as the Shea initiative is concerned. We are going to go to the next presenter, but before we do that, I would like to request all the participants from your respective place where you're listening from to type in the chat your name. So basically you have to give us your name. For example, me, I'm called Enuru Thomas. So start with your first name, which is Thomas Enuru, so that we can be able to capture your name and the organization in which you're representing. Jenny, I see your hands up, so I'll give you an opportunity to say something. However, we welcome you. So for this, try to go to the chat, type your name, starting with the first one and the last name, and the organization in which you're working in. Isaac Chitibwa, I can see you. JB, thank you. Thank you. Those who are typing their details in the chat, would like to capture this. Jenny, your hands are up. Before we move to the next presenter, could you quickly say what you want to say? Turn your mic on.
Even Peter.
Okay, Dr. Peter, maybe you can come first.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
Hello.
Peter.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was not understand your question because the signal was not very clear.
Yeah, for some reason today internet is not very perfect. We are also having the same challenge here. Basically, what I'm requesting is that you type your names, your full names in the chat and the organization in which you're representing.
Yeah, where I can type this one. This is the question here.
Yeah, it's not a question.
I'm not very comfortable with that technology here.
Okay, just go to the chat.
Yeah,
It should be
chat.
the lower side of your screen.
I see
Bottom side.
only more. So where is the chat here? I not have any chat here.
On the bottom
Here,
of your screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good. Emmanuel, your
Yes,
hands are up.
good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
I wanted to inquire whether I can get permission for recording. If not, will you be able to share the information that is being discussed nicely by Professor JB?
Absolutely. This is going to be shared with all the participants. That's why we need your details.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that it's good if you have your email address also maybe written in the chat. It will actually make more sense to share the materials at the end of the webinar.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to welcome next our presenter to make her presentation. Yes, you're welcome. Introduce yourself, your names, and more details about you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I would like to acknowledge all the speakers and discussants and all the participants, and to express my sincere gratitude to each one of you for dedicating your respective time and resources towards this particular cause. My name is Irene Florence Banji, the Vice CEO of Avast Uganda, and I'm speaking on behalf of the CEO and founder, Mr. Juko Frank. I'll start with a brief background of Avast Uganda. Avast Uganda is a Ugandan-based NGO which was incorporated in 2018 to address gaps in agricultural value chain and marketing of agricultural products through providing hands-on skill training to farmers, as well as increased stakeholder participation in agricultural value chain development. In a bid to achieve the above, Avast conducts a set of training programs, which include the Agribusiness Mentorship Program, the annual exhibition and symposium, agribusiness policy training and research, as well as webinars just like this one. These I will not explain in detail in the interest of time, but you can check out our website, which is www.avast.org. And our social media handles and the handle names. We work with different parties to achieve our training goals. And these programs are set out to produce agripreneurs and farmers that possess the passion, skills, as well as the ability to maximize available resources to increase agricultural production. We had not previously been involved in the marketing and value chain aspects of Shea products, but only recently interest in the production study in Lango sub-region, where we in the shea growing communities of Lango sub-region, and we have been inspired by the existence of an extremely valuable but endangered tree species due to continued charcoal burning. We realized that a lot needed to be done, especially regarding the conservation of shea trees. Thus, in a bid to promote and protect the shea parklands, to make a contribution to enhancing the livelihoods of shea farmers, and to increase the market for shea products in Uganda and beyond, we commenced a campaign that was dubbed Save the Shea Nut Tree, Save the Ugandan Heritage. As part of this campaign, we decided to organize this webinar and to bring together different stakeholders in the shea industry to discuss the now and the future of the shea analytica in Uganda. We also believe that conservation of the shea tree is very key in the growth of this industry. Therefore, to ensure a sustainable supply of shea nuts, it will be easier to establish processing facilities for shea and hence kickstart a flourishing shea industry like that of our counterparts in West Africa. I'd like to conclude by thanking our partners, Center of Faith, Family and Justice, Makerere University, the Anglican Church, Diocese of Lango, and Vitellaria Nilotica Consortium for organizing this event alongside Avast Uganda. I'm also calling upon other organizations to partner with us in the future. Special thanks goes to Mr. Frank Juku, our CEO and founder, as well as Dr. John Bosco Morris Okulo, an associate professor, Department of Forestry, Biodiversity and Tourism, Makerere University, and the president, Vitellaria Nilotica Consortium Limited, for their tremendous efforts in organizing this event. In a nutshell, I urge each and every one of us in our very own capacities as chain actors to take action now. You could be the missing link in the shea value chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that amazing presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. Sorry, we have a bit of hiccup here and there, but next, due to the interest of time, would like to invite Professor Tranzo from one of the public universities in Uganda, that is Muni University, to make his opening remarks. Thank you. Please try to mute your mic if you're not speaking, so that we don't get feedbacks here and there. Professor, you're welcome.
Gentlemen, the protocol. Allow me this singular honor on behalf of all conservationists and all shea actors to congratulate all of you. First of all, the organizers of this very important commemorative day, led by none other than Professor J.B. Okuru. Well done. I want to go ahead to recognize the policymakers, conservationists, shea farmers, shea collectors and processors and researchers globally and locally for the achievement of this day, 16th July, as a recognizable global shea day under the 3 pillars of promoting, planting, and protecting the shea. Sorry, I dropped off when the chairman was giving his overview, but this important tree, ya in Luo, Komra in Lubara, Awa in my indigenous Mali language, has been a very significant tree or plant, which in science we call a monospecies amongst 250,000 higher plants in sub-Saharan Africa. It has been very It has been a very important fruit tree for the sub-Saharan African continent and its millions of people. And it's also very expansive, covering 16 countries in sub-Saharan Africa from Senegal to East Africa. And we are very, very proud today to be celebrating this day. Shea is our heritage. Shea is a livelihood commodity. Shea is the driver of the over 17 SDGs. Shea for long has served our underprivileged communities in many aspects, in foods, in our culture, in fuel wood, beauty products, in trade, in health. Therefore, we put a lot of emphasis on Shea as local communities, but also now at international level. Communities in northern Uganda for long have inherited Shea ecosystems, protected and promoted Shea by setting bylaws, by doing patrols in Shea parklands. For example, in my own Moyo district, even before NFA came up with the recognition of importance of shea butter to the local people, these communities were patrolling their shea parklands. They were patrolling shea parklands because they have the cultural attachment. They have benefited through livelihoods that are supported by the Shea, as you have heard. Colleagues, there are concerns for us to rise up to. As you heard, Shea naturally grows slowly up to will not. Shea is a long-lasting indigenous heritage for Africa. It lasts over 200 years. Only colleagues, parklands, due to millions of trees are lost annually from parklands. There is low national conservation effort. The efforts at national level are mismatched to the demands for Shea products and the potential gains in the internationally acclaimed commercial markets of Shea, which spans throughout Europe, the Americas, and the Asian countries, as well as our urbanized and rural areas. This meeting is therefore very timely in awakening national interests and efforts on Shea. At this point, colleagues, allow me to recognize one important person, Ms. Margaret Laloyo, who has been fighting for the last nearly 30 years to conserve Shea in Acholi sub-region. Allow me also to single out a young man from West Nile region called Geriga, who has walked miles and miles to uplift and bring to recognition the importance of this little known fruit tree in West Nile region. Allow me to recognize all the scientists in Makerere, because we started this business long ago with the JBs and with the here. That Shea is going to put the NDBization and commercialization and innovations from this very sustainable natural resource. It is therefore very prudent for us to recognize that the 16 African countries need to be backed up by our actions towards conserving this green gold that we have inherited from our forefathers. I therefore call you to set new targets towards creation of awareness, training, reforestation efforts. I would like to see shea plantations instead of eucalyptus plantations under strict protection laws. Policy on shea tissue propagation and plantation as a replacement of non-indigenous species must be initiated. I urge you to leave no one behind. The ecosystem of northern Uganda is full of shea. An entire Ugandan population must participate actively. I call upon all of you. We are stronger together, friends. Let's focus attention on the primary players of the shea. Smallholder farmers in the parklands, our women in Otuke. We must attach importance of gender equality and aspect. May I also call our partners to increase our partners and government production, share research, both ecological, and empower our rural communities and ensure fair trade and endure quality along all along the value chain of shea. Let's support commercialization of shea and on fair and sustainable foundation. I wish you a happy commemoration, and I want to declare this conference open. Thank you for the privilege you've given me.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dranzo, for those wonderful remarks and advocacy and calling upon the different stakeholders to come in together. To come together so that we see that the regeneration and the prospects in the growth of shea community as well as the products may increase, so that our livelihoods will be improved, and for those in the rural areas will benefit, but also in the business community will be able to earn much from the different value chains of the shea, but also bring business to them. So without wasting a lot of time, we have already consumed 1 hour, so we have 2 hours to go, yet we still have a lot to discuss. So I would like to request the next presenters to try as much as possible to dive quickly into the discussion, to start their discussions as and try to minimize a lot of discussion, because we shall later have a full discussion within between the different groups that have been prepared. So next, I would like to welcome Dr. Doi, who is going to be our next Juventine, who is going to be our next presenter. You're welcome, Juventine. Can turn on your mic, please. Your mic is off. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Are you getting me?
Yes, I'm just going to share the screen as you come in. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, so Odoi Juventine Boaz, a scientist at NARO, working in the National Forestry Resources Research Institute. I'm happy to present this afternoon a topic of trees in Uganda. So we know very well Shea grows naturally, as our Professor J.B. Okulo has already said, across Africa, spanning from Senegal to Uganda and Ethiopia in the east. And it forms an unbroken belt of 6,000 kilometers long and 500 kilometers wide, where it grows with the different stand densities. In Uganda, the tree thrives in Teso, Karamoja, Lango, Asholi, Western Nile farming systems, in the farming systems in those areas, including Nakasongola district. And in these areas, they are both in protected and unprotected areas. The distribution, as I've shown here in the distribution map, as I talked of the countries, and Professor Ndrazoa has mentioned the 16 different. Yeah, so Shea thrives in the belt across 16 districts in Uganda, and the major threats are exploitation for fuel wood, charcoal production, bush fires, agricultural encroachment, and expansion for land for settlement. These threats have determined the distribution within the Shea parklands, forming a form of parkland dominated by scattered mature Shea trees. We have here a map, which I've shown. The research I'm presenting here, in the map of Uganda, you can see inset. I sampled the 246 farmers in 5 districts, which are dotted there: Katakwi, Otuke, Amoru, Moyo, and Arua. But within Nakasongola, there were no farmers because most of the Shea fall within the protected area. You can move on. Shea is quite an important tree species, and it has a commercial usefulness within the area to the communities where it grows. We well aware now it provides edible oil. The fruits are edible to the communities. It gives income, cosmetics. It is used for manufacturing several forms of products like chocolates, soap, and cosmetics. The fruit is important in subsidizing household food and nutrition during a hunger season, more so during the season where they are sowing, when the food stocks has gone down in the communities where it grows. And the women are the major key players, and their role is more on the downstream, where harvesting, local processing, or processing the kernels before taking to sell. And we also know Shea is quite important in cultural and spiritual attachment or roles where they have great attachments to the communities where it goes. Here I present results, part of the results of the study which we conducted. And the question which we had here, one is to see benefits of shea butter tree to households, where we have such a number, 55.9, indicated that they benefit a lot, more of them like for food and nutrition security because they eat the edible and the sweet pulp. But also we see income in their household income, and the rest are sold by different households out of the 246 farmers across the 5 districts which were where interview took place. We found that the oil was mostly sold by the communities for household income, and also 41% got income through sale of kernels. These are the ones who could not process to the oil, but sell the kernels. And I was very happy. I was wondering, we got 1.1% that they were getting income from seedlings. And I was wondering, I'm happy to mention that we had 37 nursery owners in Gulu. And I've come to prove this. So in the study also, we found 1.1 so said that they get income from sale of seedlings. So there are different nurseries spread, both private and institutional nurseries spread in different areas. Next. We look at shea, we are talking of shea. Since I'm talking of the local conservation, we can't talk about conservation before talking about this aspect of domestication. Shea tree is a native of West Africa in the Mosi Plain in Burkina Faso, where 3 genetic groups corresponding to the West Africa, Central Africa, and then East Africa, which is the Vitellaria paradoxa subspecies nilotica, which we are talking about today, was found. And the groups diverged 20,000 years ago, being domesticated over 1,000 years in the savanna parklands of Africa. This long existence has increased the number of shea trees in its habitat as they continue regenerating and being protected while others being planted. Thank you. Next. So the local conservation effort here in Uganda, we see that the shea conservation in Uganda is being used. There used to be traditional approaches where they used to conduct the folklores, rituals, and totems and customs that could be used to attach value to shea. That made people so that shea needed to live longer with them as they continue attaching to their cultural norms and beliefs. And also the communal ownership of land, more so in northern, where there is communal ownership of land, and the strong cultures within the shea parklands has given strong community opportunity for the conservation of shea in such areas. There are also efforts by civic society organizations, government departments, local leaders in early years that strengthened the shea conservation that has caused the shea to be carried on till the current decades where we are in. We can continue. Next slide. The emergence of local shea conservation projects, like we have the shea protection local conservation and development. There are so many NGOs, there are so many civic organizations, there are so many associations, there are so many government and non-government institutions that are coming up with the interest for Shea that has been able to allow Shea to be protected in the habitats where they are across the whole range from eastern to western Nile, and then of course to central here in Nakasongola. We have also the many institutions and civil organizations, as I've talked of, that have done great effort, the government departments. They have come up with sensitization materials. They have sensitized communities, trained the communities of the importance of Shea. So it has made the community that used to cut the Shea to attach more value to Shea. And we also have the strong local administrative structures at district levels, which help in law enforcement of the available laws, regulations, and the policies that protect the natural resources in Uganda. We have strong cultural leadership. So here we have a picture which shows the consultative meetings, focus group discussions, and interviews that we conducted with the communities around. On the right was in Moyo, and then on the top right it was in Katakwi. There, no, that was in Otuke. Then bottom left was in Katakwi. Then we have bottom right was in Amuru. We can continue. Enforcement of formal and informal rules governing the Shea barter. We are well aware that there are bylaws in different communities helping them to protect and govern this. To add a bit here, we found someone one time selling charcoal, and we were asking, this was in Otuke, are you selling charcoal? Is it of Shea? I want to take some bag of charcoal of Shea. But the person said, you cannot cut Shea and sell. Even the local community member cannot buy from you Shea. If somebody realizes you banned charcoal from Shea, then they will not buy. So this is the kind of what has been planted in the community that helps in the local conservation of the species. We have also available national and local policies, as I have talked of, the bylaws and the like. And also we look at the aspect of a win-win scenario in the conservation and the use of the Shea, where communities see that other Shea products are more valuable. Now they can get oil, they can sell Shea kernel, they can eat the fruits, but now looking at as a win-win situation, if Shea tree is cut for charcoal, then you lose all these other additive values, including the environmental services. So we can continue to the next. Here we have also in table 2 presenting the status of Shea in the area, in the study area. The question which we had was asking whether the Shea population was changing, had changed over the last 10 years. So 74% said Shea has been increasing over the last 10 years, but 26% said it is decreasing. Then also the questionnaire sought to know whether the Shea trees which are increasing are regenerating from the farmlands or they are planted. But 77% said that they are regenerating naturally. This is supported by what we have also in the upper one, the 74%. Then also we sought to know, the questionnaire sought to know whether Shea tree types are selected for protection within the farmland. And 65% said yes, they are protected, and 35% said no. We also went ahead to inquire whether the Shea trees are located, where the Shea trees are located within a farmland. Then 67% said they are scattered all over the farmland, but we had 33% saying that they are around the boundary. Each one of these had their own reasons. Let's continue to the next. I mentioned earlier that the Shea tree, the farmer managed the natural resources of Shea trees within the parklands has contributed a lot. Within the gardens of the farmers, like if you see the photo on the left, This is the cultivated area. We have there some cassava trees. Now the cassava trees which we have there, the cassava plantation, the farmers retained the shea, the juvenile shea, which have grown within their garden. So it is like that. If you see all around, there is a thick bush, which means that there was a fresh clearance for this cassava garden. But they are juvenile young shea, which are not yet mature, and a number of them. So farmers could leave them within their garden and they continue growing. And during very dry, like this study was done during the dry season. If you see both the right was a parkland, uncultivated land. On the left is the cultivated land. But you discover that the whole grass is brown. Total dry sun, hot sun. But the shea continued with the green and fresh, and they had fruits. Mature ones had fruits. So this is why shea plays a very important role in food and nutrition security. So during such a time whereby the cassava is drying and cassava is a hardy plant, so it makes them continue conserving. We also have ex-situ efforts being done by institutions. National Forestry Authority, not the Wild Agroforestry, which is ICRAF, in collaboration with the National Forestry Resource Research Institute at Ngeta, planted 1 acre in 2011, which is the top right. And they are now grown. We are monitoring to see when will they first fruit. Then National Forest Authority, National Forest Resources Research Institute also planted 16 acres. And we are monitoring since 2019 monitoring. I would like to thank you very much for listening to my presentation. Let us conserve. We are stewards of creation, and shea is part of creation. So let us conserve nature. Thank you.
Sure, Odoi. Thank you so much for your presentation. Sorry, the presentation went a little bit longer than the 10 minutes. So I would like to re-echo to the next presenters that you will only be given about 10 minutes to make a presentation. Next, we would like to invite Robert Abak to make a discussion as far as this is concerned. Robert, it's your time.
Robert is not again.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, yeah, my name is Robert Abak, President District Commissioner of NEBI. I've been coordinating the implementation, conservation and protection of the shea trees. I must thank all the presenters and the organizers, especially Professor J.B. Okulu, for this great day. I'm grateful. I would like to bring, first of all, the background, the genesis of the challenge. We have known all about the shea trees. Before the civil war in northern Uganda, shea trees were sustainably used as a protected by the people. During and after the war, people's livelihoods.
You can mute the video and use audios. We are not listening very well.
Oh, what is it? Audio?
Yes, we can hear you actually. Go ahead. Robert, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Are you getting me now? Hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes,
yes,
please,
I would like to say
carry
that.
on.
Yes, well, I said I want to go back a bit and say before the civil war in northern Uganda, shea butter trees were sustainably utilized and protected by the people. But during and after the war, people's livelihood was disrupted and poverty became rampant. And this paved the way for massive destruction of trees, shea butter trees inclusive, for charcoal production in an attempt to earn a living. It is now feared that if this trend continues, unabated, the shea butter trees will get extinct in the near future. So this one here poses a very big threat to government. And you remember, the president himself, His Excellency the President, came up with a directive in 2006. And the presidential directive of 2006 directed for the protection of the tree due to its economic and natural nutritional
I don't know, but I think we have lost Robert.
Network challenges.
Could be network challenges.
We are requesting that they should use audios and music because they are not listening now.
Tom,
Due to the interest of time, maybe
you advise the presenters to switch off video.
That's what I was also requesting. They should switch off videos, then they just read the audios because we are not listening to the ones that are interrupting the network here.
okay, we'll take that advice. So our next presenters should try to mute their videos and only allow their audios to be on.
What we want. They should mute the videos because we are not seeing anything. And it's the one causing the network failure maybe.
Okay, so due to the interest of time, I would like to invite our next presenter, and that is going to be Mara Patrick. Mara Patrick is going to do a presentation on community empowerment for sustaining shea production and livelihood in Uganda. Patrick, are you there? Yeah, you turn on your mic and please welcome for the presentation. Just sharing my screen so that you can. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Patrick Omara. I'm the managing director of Pills Care Limited. We have been in the business for a long time. We process shea butter and we do some agricultural business also. Now, my theme the themes remain the same as incentive productivity and market potential for electrical shea for improvement livelihood. My topic is community empowerment for sustainable shea production and livelihood improvement. Introduction. It's my pleasure to join the shea family in this shea world today. I further welcome all. I expect positive contribution from various actors in the shea world. I find very important to define my topic today. Who are the actors? The shea stakeholders, the shea community who need to be empowered, sustained in order to improve the livelihood. Now, when you look at this, deep in the village, we have people who are very poor, people, the orphan who came in as a result of either war and other issues, the old people, disabled persons, women and youth. So when you're thinking about shea, Think about case in the community. How do we really help this case out? Next slide. I'm going to be a little bit fast. I continue now. Community empowerment we needed for sustainable share production. I'm looking at activity, some of the activity, because maybe I'll take it back again. We have already, my colleagues already talked about the history of shea butter. Maybe I have to just include one or two. In African documents, mention jar of shea butter used for skin and care. Transport during Cleopatra. Cleopatra was a wife to Julius Caesar sometime back. That's the year 2000, year 58 to 80 BC before Christ. Even the Queen of Sheba used to use shea butter. And the shea tree was only cut to make coffee for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh, that's the Egyptian king those days. Next. Next slide. Next. We are looking at deliberate effort to improve livelihood for share community. Now, the organization there's so many organizations who are really trying to support shea butter production in the country. But there are reasons. There are so many reasons why people are not gaining any benefit from share. Now I've been moving around with my company.
Patrick, sorry to interrupt you. Could you turn off your video so that maybe the network will stabilize a bit? Okay, thank you. So you can go ahead, please.
Okay. So we are looking at deliberate effort to improve the livelihood. Let's say that we have so many organizations who have been trying to help organize the share community. But again, if you look at it, all this time, there have been many organizations, the government bodies, agency, but there have been no improvement in the livelihood of this share community. The reason I looked at one reason we found out in the villages is you find some of this community, the local leaders, then some of the district official, they give out certificate or they give out the lances to go and cut down the shea trees. And these people don't value any kind of tree. They go to cut the shea tree inclusive and they cut down these trees. So we look around, we thought, what do we do to make sure that maybe this community realize that this shea, they need to take it by themselves, but not by these others who are coming to cut the shea tree for charcoal. And then to make it worse, these people who cut shea tree for charcoal, they don't use the shea tree. They don't use the charcoal. There are people who fell this thing up to Kampala and some other places. And also you must know, there's some point whereby the tree, because shea tree it's right from the roots up to the roots, the barks, the leaves, all are medicinals. So there are people who carry this thing off and transport it and export it outside. Now we look at how do we empower this community so that their production is sustainable. We looked at one activity network terminology, information exchange. We have to exchange information with community, just that they know shea is a what? Is a crop which is going to benefit them. Now, when you look at one shea tree, I saw somebody ask there, one shea tree, a big shea tree, is going to produce between 25 to 30 kilograms of shea nuts. Now, you find they have a cup, a very small cup that they sell the shea nuts in it. That cup alone, I've been counting the number of nuts which are there. You find one cup has around 80 to 90 seeds, and each seeds, the seed vary from 3 grams to 9 grams. And then you find somebody selling a cup maybe at 200 shilling. It depends where the village, where the location of the village is. But most cases right now you find about 300 shilling, meaning somebody is selling a kilo of shea at around 1,000, which is so low. And looking at one tree of shea producing around 25 to 30 kilogram of nuts. Now the process gets little money in what is shea. That's why we are going to come. We are coming in. Make sure the information we exchange with the community. We do the training. We do the marketing. We train of the marketing skill of it. Then where is we have to put somewhere so that this guys know exactly what they're playing, what they're trying to do. Now my next slide is we're also looking at how do we promote hello? Are you getting
Yes,
me?
we can get you, but you have few minutes to go, about 3.
Okay. We're looking at how do we make sure these farmers also, this community knows that that's the share nut that they're selling, or the share tree they're trying to protect is valuable. We look at how do we link these farmers to market also. We are thinking of forming cooperative, which some already been formed. We are looking at warehousing system where they bring the nuts in the store, go and get money from the banks, so that we look at when the price of the nuts goes higher, they can now sell. We are looking at creating some market information center whereby all, like we put in Lira, Gulu, where the market for share today is this, so that these people realize the value of the share. Then we look at also these people who are processing the local share, they should bring in the market. We look at trade show, conferences, and other seminars. We are looking at weekend markets. We are looking at farmers to farmers market also. Then after like swapping at time, you change what you don't have with what you have. Then the next, improving saving culture and reoriented and retooling of investment knowledge. You find most of these people, most of the people in the villages, they lack the saving culture and investment. Now we are thought to bring the village saving and loan association, which are going to train this farmers community and our company. We are looking at what we call the 30 days saving rules, whereby you have to think for 30 days before you spend that money. Now we're looking at maybe if you go to the field, pack your lunch, don't buy the lunch so that you can save some money. Then pay yourself first. We're looking at invest the saving, because most people, why the saving not doing so well in this community and even in other part of the country is you find people are eating what they've saved instead of investing that money somewhere else. Then I have to conclude. I think I'm after about the time. I have to conclude now. Our conclusion as guys here, Care Limited. Now, if you go out, let's go out to the shea farmers, get out to the field, work with the shea farmers on solution to the problem. Remember, the shea farmer knows more than we do. Number 2, our conclusion, if our objective is starting up a contract farming operation with the shea farmers, is to pay them lower price for shea nuts, then we shall be doing it for a wrong reason. We need to give this for better price than what people are giving out. The 4th one is addition to now another thing that people are losing a lot is chemical traceability in shea butter. Now, if you look at the West African market, West African export more shea butter than us, and if you look at shea butter that we take from Africa, from East Africa, is less, is the percentage rejection is about 90% because we don't know what exactly it is in the shea. So this way we are going to come out, look at the traceability, some of the chemical, because most of the area where they are growing shea, they also have some crops. So these crops are being sprayed with pesticide. So we're looking at, we have to bring some organic pesticide which can be made also from shea, so that they can spray, not use the other commercial insecticide which is going to be traced in the shea butter. Then farmers also don't realize, they don't care if you don't come to them. You make sure you go to them so that they can also gain your knowledge, and also they can improve on the quality of the shea, which improve the quality of the shea butter. Then the market also can come by itself. I thank you all. I think you have seen in our schedule some of our product, which we are still making more. Thank you. Hello? Hello?
Hello, Patrick. Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you, Patrick, so much for your presentation. Due to the interest of time, our next discussant will be Sabino Francis from NEMA. Sabino, you're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely, loud and clear, sir.
Yeah, could you just allow me to share my screen? I'll move very fast, if
Sure.
you can. Okay, so let me go there. Do you see something there?
This guy is giving me little time.
Hello?
Yes, Francis, we can
Yes,
see, you
please.
can see.
We can
You
see
can see.
Francis.
Okay, thank you. So I'll
Just
move
put
very
your
fast.
presentation on the presentation mode.
Okay, okay. Oh, it's coming. There it goes. So I'll move relatively fast because I see that we are squeezed in terms of time. I'll control it from my side here. I've decided to use those colors to match the day itself. So just you've heard from the presenter, and I would like to say there are very good points he has raised, which can help us moving forward with actually improving the livelihoods of communities through this issue we are talking so much about. And some of those you'll see in his presentation if it is shared. So I'll not take a lot of time on that because those are the, I would say the positive aspects, the good ones he have managed to pick out from there. But all of them are generally okay, but there are some of those were catching to me. So I'll go straight to what I intend to present here. And before I get into it, this slide here will tend to give you some perspective of what basically empowerment is. So you will see I've tried to quote a gentleman there, Mark, how he thinks empowerment, what it means. Then WHO there saying a process through which people can gain greater control over decisions and actions affecting their health, but you could say maybe their lives. And so the key thing here is that we are trying to enable people to take charge of their lives for better improvement of their livelihoods. And therefore, issues like social, educational, economic, and political setting becomes very important when you're dealing with the issues on empowerment. Now, going straight to the points, and just to complement what Patrick has just presented there, one of the things we need to look through is the gender consideration. You could have seen from the video earlier on, which I appeared in there, that most of these share things tend to be much more gender-based, and women and girls seem to have been taking the bigger role in there. The boys will basically collect the nuts, but they don't go further enough. You look at the processing part of it. So it is really almost a women-based thing. But of course, with the technology now, you expect that also men will get involved. When we went to those share processing plants in Kitgum and others, we saw men now getting involved indirectly. They used to say we don't grind or grind maize or what, or this groundnuts or millet, but eventually with technology, you take it to the grinding machine. You are grinding maybe indirectly. Then the other is to look at the appropriate technology that can still meet the required standard. You've seen how those women are processing, especially the hot press. But we should look at how can we make that we avoid. You see a lot of losses that happens there. Then research. I think there is still a lot. There is still a lot you've heard that we still don't know the products, or at least we have underdeveloped the products from here. And then strengthening and establishing market access information centers. We have them already in Agago and Otuke through the Kitepo Landscape Project, but I think we can have this kind of thing in most of those districts. And then you've heard about the presidential initiative of 2006. That gives us a greatest opportunity really to do resource mobilization. And at the same time, to raise the profile of the Shea. We are not making use of that. There is a presidential initiative on banana, and I think people took advantage of that. So those are the kind of things I think on the side of the points I had. We can go to the next slide, which is on what has NEMA done in this area. Actually, government has done a lot. Maybe the problem is just lack of sharing either disinformation or documentation not reach our stakeholders out enough. But we have worked very closely with Makerere University as well. Right now, we are piloting restoration of those degraded shea areas. You've heard about these trees being cut. You go to Uliduru, you will see it for yourself. These trees can be restored, but people have to be patient. It takes time to establish. Of course, if we get the other juvenile, which takes shorter time, that would be okay. Then there is a national export strategy for the shea products developed. That one now should make shea product also become one of the commodities to be recognized in Uganda for export. So that was done in collaboration with Uganda Export Promotion Board. Then there is a national strategy for the conservation and sustainable use of the threatened shea butter trees in Uganda. We have a training manual on post-harvest handling, standardization, and diversification of shea butter products. You've seen how those women are handling things. Perhaps that is not the best way to continue. Then there is a management plan for the wildlife dispersal corridors in the Kidepo landscape, which includes most of those shea districts that border Kidepo critical landscape or Kidepo National Park. So that plan is there, and the districts that were piloted for this project have actually embraced it. Then there is a new provision in the Environment Act of 2019. If you look at section 115, it talks about biodiversity offsets, and I will explain that in the closing remarks. People have talked about urban centers, infrastructure, as you saw it in Okulo's presentation. Now there's a provision where I can ensure no net loss of those development. In conclusion, I see that the shea trees provides opportunity to empower and transform the livelihoods of local communities. The resources occur naturally. People want natural occurring products where you don't use fertilizers. They don't even put labor to maintain the crop, honestly, just collecting the nuts. And it has got this market, which is local, which is regional, which is international. What more could we not really take advantage of to turn that place, that landscape into what people can lead better lives? Then protecting the shea butter trees in the landscape has additional outcome of protecting the local communities from adverse effects of climate change. There are certain areas in northern Uganda, all what you see is the shea trees. Now, if those ones are cleared, you expect to be more vulnerable to any change in climate. And I think that will not be good for people in the long term. Recommendation 1, we need to see more investment in the conservation, sustainable use and of the shea trees. I think this is where we need to combine effort. You've heard government is putting on this, but natural resources in general, people think they will replenish themselves all the time. That is not going to be the case in the long term. Then this biodiversity offsets. This is where, in very short way of putting it, is that we have to ensure that there is no net loss that comes from an activity. Say if it is a road construction and you have cleared 20 trees of shea, then we have to make sure that those 20 trees you have cleared, we have identified a site, you plant it, and you take care of it. You make sure that you put in mechanism so that it survives. So in a way, you have, through some impacts which are unavoided, cleared, but we are saying you replace it. So we identify a proper site to do that. So I could answer some questions, but those were my reflections about this, and the time is short. I cannot take a lot of time to explain some of these concepts like this biodiversity offset, but I can throw more light if needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that beautiful remarks. I love the conclusion and the recommendation that you have really shared here. Okay, so maybe you could stop sharing your screen so that you give us the ability to. Also, I would request that we are going to be sharing all the presentation with all the participants today. So you could also share yours, or you could email us so that we compile them together. Thank you, Sabino.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll edit a little bit and send to Professor Okulo. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so moving on to our next presenter, Shinje, are you there? Marion?
Marion has a video that I'm just going to share with us shortly.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. I'm recording this because I'm actually traveling, And I'm not sure if I'll have good network. So let's hope this all goes well. It's one of my first times doing a pre-recording. Let me just share my screen, and then we can get into the middle of what I'm presenting today. I hope you're all doing well and that you're all safe. I know it's been a very challenging time for many of us. Some of us have lost people, and some of us are actually struggling with COVID. But to everybody, I hope you've been able to stay safe and be vaccinated as well. Today, I'm going to be presenting about the opportunities and challenges faced in the value addition and marketing of Shea Nilotica in Uganda and beyond. To begin with, my name is Marianne Tiang Businje. I am the proud owner of a company called Mocha Beauty and Skincare Limited that manufactures Shea Care Naturals. We are a wholly Ugandan company. We're all women, and there is one man, I have to say. So we're bringing up the levels in gender balance from that point. We're based in Kampala. We've been incorporated since 2015. So we got into Shea purely as an act of love. I started using Shea on my son when he was born. He had a few challenges with his skin and found that it worked. But then what we found was that it wasn't being packaged or marketed well. In fact, I didn't even know that Uganda had Shea until I started looking for it. So for us, we're very proud about going from source to skin. Shea provides skincare to both manufacturers, retailers, and consumers of shea butter that are looking for natural ingredients. Unlike, we pride ourselves on being having very high levels of shea in all of our products, whether we're doing lotions or butters or creams. So that is where we add our value. In terms of the value we create it through the various channels. As you all are aware, this process begins with the collectors at the community. Once the shea nuts are collected, it is then processed through local processors who we have been working with directly. We have only this year we've started looking into working with collectors because we do want to get into processing by vertical integration. So once we get in the butter, we go through our production processes. We work with about 20 retailers within Kampala. Those are available online. We're under the process of getting certification, both for UNBS, and we're looking into other fields. How we add value, the value is added to our customers through our supply chain, our manufacturing, marketing and sales. We pride ourselves in customer service, looking at our quality control, and also research and development into new products and new trends that are happening within the skincare world. So you can see it's a long process from the nut to the customer. There's a long process for all of us in the value chain. This, I think, has probably been expanded on before me, talking about the value addition from the collection of nuts into the processing of the shea butter. Yes. This, many of us will be familiar with.
What is nuts?
In terms of the products we produce, these are the products. Butters, creams, and lotions, balms, soaps. We went into hand washers and even sanitizer last year when COVID-19 hit up. So this is our brand. Our brand is called Shea Care, and this is generally what it looks like. To give you an idea of where we are as an industry, Uganda it's just touching the surface of the shea butter industry. Just to give you an idea, these statistics were put through on a GIZ report last year. In terms of production of nuts, the global production was estimated at around 800,000. West Africa was producing predominantly the most, at 795,000. Uganda was only recorded as doing 3,500 tons. I believe that stats on Uganda are probably higher. The issue is that most of our statistics are not recorded there's a lot that happens in the informal sector rather than through the formal sector. So being able to know who has collected what and where and from which area of the country is very hard to garner as information. The other interesting part to note, when you look at the imports to Europe, 60,000 tons were done in total. Majority of this came through West Africa. Predominantly, probably Ghana and Nigeria had a large impact on that. Uganda was only recorded as doing 30 tons. In terms of value proposition for the industry, I've really just explanated what I am doing. When you look, and I take myself to be a typical value addition company. So we look at our customers in two forms: a direct customer and a business customer. The direct customer is looking at the natural skincare market. They're looking for, they're ingredient conscious, and they're looking to specialize because they're either looking for specific, they're trying to solve a specific problem, or they're trying to follow a particular trend. The B2B customers are largely cosmetic manufacturers. They, of course, follow trends. So right now we're seeing a huge growth in the natural oil market, especially within skincare. So there's an increased demand for shea butter, avocado oil, moringa oil, some of these other more niche oils. But shea butter at the moment is leading in terms of new areas. I remember a few years ago, everybody was talking about coconut, but at the moment it's all shea butter. So as you will see, in terms of B2B customers, you've got the cosmetic manufacturers, you've got the international retailers, you've got the domestic retailers. So for us, the international retailers that we currently deal with are ShopRite, Carrefour, Game. The domestic retailers are people like Capital Shoppers, Quality Supermarkets, the retailers really who are more homegrown. We also do deals with some corporates or hotels. They also are looking to have own brand sort of cosmetics. In terms of the value proposition, there's a lot to be said about our wild harvest. Very few of us, I believe there's only one person currently who is licensed organic. I'm hoping Margaret has been able to share experience. Organic butter is a huge deal. We're seeing price differences between conventional and organic butter. The more of us that can get organically certified, the better, both in terms of pricing and then also in terms of demand. But it is a process. It is a very big process and it is costly. There is also a market for handmade products. The people are asking us to be more environmentally responsible. When you go up country and you see what is happening, or even within our cities, when you see what is happening with plastics, it's a shame. The packages need to be well. The products in themselves need to be well packaged and branded so that they actually look attractive to a customer, and that requires also a lot of research and money as well. For example, within Uganda, we struggle to find appropriate packaging for our products. Now, this is where the interesting parts come in. A lot of us look at numbers and look at the potential in terms of what the industry can do. In terms of market potential, and these are statistics we took between 2019 and 2020. When you look at the local market was currently worth 805 billion. It's probably dipped a bit, and that's in terms of Uganda shillings. It's probably dipped a bit because of the existing situation with coronavirus. However, we are huge consumers of cosmetics. Now, the percentage of which that shea butter contributes to that, we haven't been able to extrapolate. But if you look at those numbers, even if you're looking at less than 5% of that, that's a huge margin There's a huge potential market for anybody who is in this industry. The regional market is higher. Of course, expenditure in Kenya and Tanzania, because of their larger population size, is also bigger. Kenyans have more disposable income. It is a more developed market. It's also easier to enter if you channel through the retailers. In terms of the global market, this number is huge. Some of the statistics which I got from this got off the CBI website. They are estimating that by the end of 2025, the value of the shea butter market will be about 2.9 billion. Excuse me, 2.9 billion US dollars. Now, I do have to say that approximately 10% of that is looking at shea butter for cosmetics, but that's still a massive market. And then when you look on top of that, that a quarter of that is going into Europe. If anybody just decides to focus on particular areas and do it well, you will earn a very good living out of that. This slide gives you an idea of the regional interest in global cosmetic market, where the interest is lying. Asia Pacific have always been huge consumers of cosmetics. They currently consume about 39%, close to 40%, followed by North America, followed by Europe, and then some of the other continents. In terms of Africa, I do know that Nigeria and South Africa are the biggest consumers of shea butter. So if somebody was to decide to just stay within the region again and focus, it does add value into what you're putting through. Now, a lot of the challenges we face when we come up to our customers can fit into two sort of brackets. The local retailer or buyer will ask, are you registered? Are you fully registered, let's say, with a TIN number? Are you registered with UNBS? Can you be consistent? Can you supply consistently? Do you have the right packaging? The international buyers, who are probably bulk buyers, are more interested in what your annual production looks like. Can they buy the butter? Can they buy the nuts? How long can you sustain this? What sort of numbers do you have on the trees? What is your annual yield? All of these are numbers which we're being asked, and the data is not readily available. So we do have gaps in the data. It would be very useful to get access to that information, and that helps in terms of being able to sell. The other challenges we face are both in terms of certification. A lot of them ask for different sort of certificates, some of which are available, some of which aren't, some of which take time, but all of it requires a lot of effort and a lot of resources, which for small companies like mine certainly can't do them without assistance from grants or financing. The other biggest dilemma we found was in terms of logistics. Getting shea butter even from Kampala to the other side of the world is a logistical nightmare. You either have issues with the packaging of the drums, or the particular logistic carrier hasn't dealt with it well. We recently had a situation where we actually did ship out some shea butter. It wasn't tied down well, so there were a few buckets which were damaged on delivery. So all of those things, we have to have a concerted effort in terms of looking, in terms of everybody specializing in their particular areas. One with let's say in terms of my production on the quality. Two, making sure that whoever is going to carry this thing knows how to carry a butter, knows how to deal with it at the right temperatures, knows where to get it to the end customer. The major marketing challenges that we face, we do not have an active umbrella for shea. I know this has been discussed, it's been discussed for a while, but when I especially last year, I started seeing a lot of emphasis being put on post-COVID recovery programs, different incentives for people to actually go back into business. Now, a lot of these require an association. Right now, I do know there's talk of it. I know we've started one, but we need to be active. We need to accelerate that. The individual players are working.
Okay, thank you so much. Sure, Tom Okello, you're with me. I need to manage the time. The video is quite long. It's about 22 minutes and it was already pre-recorded. So I would like to just maybe vote. I don't want to make this my individual choice or decision. If I see 3 hands up, voting that we should continue watching the video till the end, or we can share this at a later stage with all the materials for the webinar. Emmanuel has voted. Wow. So it seems people want to finish watching the video.
Yeah, I was thinking that we can share the material later. We listen to other presenters because we have only 15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. You're right.
Yeah, the raising of hand is not voting.
Oh. Okay, Patrick, Aria, is that the same? Sharon Atiang, are you saying we watch the video later?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
we
should
can
be
watch
the same with
the
Patrick.
video later.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to share the screen of Margaret. Margaret, we've received your presentation. Margaret is going to make a presentation on post-harvest handling and quality control for shea nuts. So Margaret, are you there as I share your screen? Margaret?
I'm available.
Okay, I'm sharing your
Yes.
screen right away.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, please.
It's a privilege and honor to participate in this first World Shea Butter Day organized in Uganda. And Uganda in East Africa that has the Nilotica shea butter is one of the nations among the 4, Ethiopia, Chad, South Sudan, and Uganda is the 4th one. That is really doing something with shea. I want to thank the professors, the organizers, and all those who are participating within Uganda and outside Uganda. I've been honored to, and I've been given a very interesting topic to handle. I worked with Blessed Organic Release in northern Uganda, in Pade, and I worked with several districts with the rural community. I'm a trainer nationally, I'm a trainer internationally. And this is a very important value chain that have been given and is the start of the quality of shea butter. Post-harvest handling from fruits to kernel is a key pace setting for quality management. Once the quality of the kernel is destroyed, you can no longer get the good quality of shea butter. I just want to take you back and give you a story of 2006. There was a report that came from American Shea Butter Institute that less than 10% of shea butter that comes from East Africa qualifies for the premium grade A quality, which most of the buyers today are looking for. And then the challenge that we had was that predominantly the areas that had shea had war. But despite that, we need to come to terms with reality to admit that we had gaps on quality management. Looking at shea, the value chain is very long. Post-harvest quality management is just a part of it. Because of time, I don't want to deviate so much from my presentation. I will just give the highlights. For those who are interested in something more, we will discuss later. Post-harvest handling starts from the fruit. If you look at my second slide, the fruit, the nuts, the fresh kernel, and then the dried kernel. In between these different products, there are activities that needs to be critically handled to keep the quality. It's like a relay. When somebody is running the first part of the athletics, if he runs fast and he gives the next baton to the next person carefully, that gives the pace that that group might win. In the same way, post-harvest handling requires everyone to do their best. It starts with the collectors. Thank God that God takes the quality of the fruits from the tree until it falls down, then the collector starts it and they collect the fruit. When the fruit is collected, it needs to be depulped. To depulp, it means to remove the nuts from the fruit because the fruit ferments so easily and affects the nuts. In collection of the fruit, the major interest is the nuts. So what we are guarding is the nuts. So when we depulp it, we allow the nuts to dry uniformly so that the kernel is not crushed. When we depulp it, we avoid germination, which causes contamination. And then once it is depulped, the nuts is exposed to the sun. It will dry within weeks or 2 or less, depending on the heat, the amount of the sunshine. And then it is shelled into kernel. Kernel is the product that we press shea butter from. And that is a critical control point because that, if it is exposed to dust, to any chemical, it will affect the quality. So in essence, as Marion has been talking about, the quality of the product has to be taken care of from day one the fruit falls down. And then when it goes to the level of the nuts, they have to take care of it, that they will not dry it on the ground. And more when it comes to kernel. Those who are handling it has to protect it very well. Today, many believe that post-harvest handling is only for the collectors. That's part of the myth, the professional myth and the cultural myth that people have. When you look at the traders, when they buy the kernel in desperation, they will buy kernel from any seller, whatever quantity, whether the one that has been dried for 1 day, the one that has been dried for 1 week, the one that has been dried for 2 days, and it's all bulked together. That would cause molding, that would cause contamination. In the end, the processor, because he's desperate for the nuts, would buy whatever, and then they will process. And because of that, the consistent quality of shea butter from East Africa has been lacking. This has come down to the fact that the quality management at post-harvest has been the major contributor for that poor quality. The second thing about these processes from fruit to dried kernel, it has been the contribution of the greatest loss of shea nuts. In 2017, 2018, the yield of shea nuts in Uganda was very high, and the loss was 65%. A lot of those shea nuts that was bought by different people, and they process it. I remember I was in a class, in a training in American Shea Butter Institute. Somebody shipped a container load of shea butter to California. And when it was brought to the lab for analysis, it was grade F. And that grade F, what contributed it most was the high level of anisidide value, which shows the parameter of the mismanagement as post-harvest handling. And today, we know that the variety, we go to the next slide. We know that the variety of the shea in Uganda is different from the West African shea. So our market, our target market for shea butter is cosmetic, pharmaceutical, and then food, for food industry. These three requires very high quality of kernel that is suitable for unrefined shea butter for cosmetic. Because of the gaps that we have and the malpractice that we've had, most of the people and the processors, even the trainers who are training people, they have copied the method from the West African shea butter, which is completely different variety. And that brought a confusion on how to handle shea kernel. The market focus today is organic rather than refined, because the refined shea butter is the one that you will always get the consistent quality. When we do not have the consistent quality of the unrefined shea butter, which is organic, and the consistent volume, most of the buyers would rather go for the refined shea butter so that they have consistent quality for their end product. And because of that, there is a need for increasing the level of critical control point in the quality management of shea kernel. Unfortunately, there is a gap in the value chain that does not promote quality management. When I buy shea nuts, shea kernel from one collector, and then another person B comes and buy from that same collector, and the person B does not put emphasis on the need for the quality kernel, the rest of the people, when they hear that, they will say, what's wrong with you that you insist on this quality? And because of that, there is need for people to be trained and to be, in some cases, to be re-educated on evidence-based methods and procedures and protocols unique for Nilotica variety. As we know that the chemical composition of butter within the paradoxa kernel is remarkably different from the butter found in Nilotica kernel. Consequently, the difference in stability under oxidative stress, hydraulic stress, metallic stress, and thermal stress is profoundly different. For that reason, it is a requirement and a recommendation that as the people in East Africa or doing shea and Nilotica, we cannot in any way compare our quality requirements for kernel with the West African quality level. And in addition to that, because the shea Nilotica had not been known in the market, and it has not been documented, the procedures and the processes for quality management from post-harvest to shea butter, most of the people tend to copy, to go to access from Google and copy and paste and say, this is the way we should follow. This is the method we should follow. This has created a confusion. I want to emphasize this, taking advantage of many researchers and academia, and then the people in the value chain, that these methods that are used in West Africa, it cannot be applicable totally for the Nilotica shea butter because of the different chemical composition and different oil content that in these two varieties. So post-harvest quality management is a very critical thing that calls for a concerted effort for everyone, for us to address, so that the product of Uganda or for East Africa, Nilotica kernel, which is destined for cosmetic industry, would achieve the suitable and required consistency in that quality. And I want us to look at the next slide. When we looked at the fruit, the nut, and the nice looking kernel, this is on assumption that the nuts was dried when it was depulped and washed or clean, so that they dried uniformly. And when they shell it, the kernel is not crushed. If you look at the upper nuts, which look dirty. It looks like some of the fruits are still on it, which is common in the village, which is common with the Shea collectors. These nuts, once, even if it dries, because of the skin that has covered the mesocarp that has covered the nuts, it will not allow all the nuts to dry uniformly. In the end, when they shell it, it will crush and it will crack the kernel. The crack nut, the crack kernel, and then the crushed kernel is so prone to microbial contamination, is so prone to contamination. It is also the nuts that has not been properly depulped. Most of them can easily germinate, and the germination causes contamination. And all these contributes to the quality mismanagement of kernel, and then the poor quality of the shea butter. For that reason,
Margaret,
yes,
I would like to give you just 1 minute so that we allow others to have some minutes to present as well. Thank you.
That's enough for me. 1 minute is enough for me. So we call for everyone to embrace a proper training, probably even evidence-based, that that quality management at post-harvest handling has to be done. In some cases, some people need to be re-educated so that we can set the procedures and the protocols, which is unique for Nilotica variety. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Apoyo Matek Laloyo, for your presentation. It was a beautiful one and very clear. Without wasting time, I would like to invite Dr. or Honorable Betty to make her remarks. I'll just give her maybe 3 minutes. And then next we shall have Francis Omujal in the queue. Thank you. Honorable Betty.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, I would like to thank Margaret for that awesome presentation. Mine is really reiterating what Margaret and Marion have said. Have been in the shea butter business for the last 20 years. And the biggest challenge I've had is maintaining quality because of the lack of ways to follow up, to trace the nuts from where they're collected, and then the processing challenges. I've had to just decide to add value to the value-added butter. I tried doing the collection. We had challenges with post-harvest handling. And then I tried processing. We had challenges of the machines getting broken because of power outages. And so I had to just decide to wait for others who have managed to get for me the butter to then make the cosmetics, the soaps, and all the other shea butter products. Unfortunately, we also have issues of standards. Until recently, and thank Margaret, we didn't have standards for shea butter. But even then, we realized that the shea butter from the different parts of even northern Uganda have different characteristics and parameters. And so it's very difficult to talk about a uniform standard. And then the other biggest challenge that I have as a manufacturer is the nightmare of certification with UNBS. It is almost impossible to get our products certified because these are natural products, and usually it's chemicals that make them stable. But if you try to go all organic, you find that it is almost impossible. And let alone that, we also hear about innovation funds, scientists being supported, but it's all lip service because there's a lot of need for research and development and product development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betty. You didn't introduce yourself quite well. I didn't want to preempt that. So just 2 seconds, tell us more about yourself.
Well, I was trying to race with time. I'm Honorable Dr. Betty Udongo. I'm a botanist, and I'm a former woman member of parliament from Nebi district. Currently, I am the CEO of Nile Tropical Industries, and we produce shea butter products, and also I do training in products development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betty, for that. Thank you so much. Emmanuel, a quick one as I share the screen.
Yes,
Your hands is
I
up.
just want to encourage Betty Udong that I've been supporting people in certification area, including Patrick Omala, who is now having certification of UNBS. But unfortunately, people give up in the early stages. So I encourage you to get in touch with me. I've put my email address there. Then I connect you to the right people.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow.
I'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Okay. Francis, Dr. Francis Omujal,
Yes, thank you so much, Thomas.
you have only 10 minutes or less.
Oh, I
Thank you.
think it's very important because Margaret has talked a lot about it. I just need to highlight a few things which she has actually mentioned. Go to the next slide. Shea butter, all we know, it comes from the shea tree. I don't want to talk about. Go to the next slide. I guess the issue. We can actually talk about the shea production. We actually have very few. The production of shea nut in Uganda is so low, and even love little statistics. What we are having here is some old information which we need to revise. Only 25% of the shea butter production in Africa comes from Uganda, which is so little. Even it must be higher even. And we know that the majority of that shea butter actually is coming from what Margaret talked about. It's 80% just traditional process. So a very small percentage goes into the other industry. The majority is just in the rural areas being produced for household use. Very little goes to export. Next slide. Next slide. I want to emphasize on the, what Margaret was talking about. And all those aspects Margaret was talking about are very sensitive in terms of quality. Now, when our trees alone, first of all, are different, and we are combining all the fruits together, which means we need to characterize and identify trees and sort them out according to quality, which we have not done. We need to do that. Ensure that these trees are for this particular category and so on. And I think somebody has done in terms of the appearance of a nut, but little has been done on the quality of the oil from those nuts. I remember Guadia did something on that. We need to consider that. We need, in terms of shelling, the husking, removing the pulp, the technology already developed. Like Doctor has mentioned that you see these nuts, they live when birds have eaten some of the pulp, they just keep it on the ground. And those which are shelled, those which have the pulp, half the pulp are all there. And the drying process, so we need to develop a technology to ensure that the pulp is there. Drying is very important. We are dependent on the sun, and the sun varies all the time. So we need to develop a technology specifically for drying. All those have effects on the quality of the nut in terms of the fatty acids from the oil. In terms of shelling, very, very awkward technologies. We need to have technologies which are uniform and standard and ensure that the nuts are sorted. Sometimes molding of nuts is very common, and we need to ensure that the nuts are not molded. And this can only be harmonized when we have standardized the process. Storage is a very key because molds come in, and we don't know where these nuts have come from, the time of drying, and we store them at the same time. That becomes a problem at the time. So at the end of the day, when we test the quality of the nut, the fatty acid profile will be so high. In terms of heating, I mean, the process preparing a nut, all those stages of preparing into extracting oil are very essential. Our machines for extracting oils, the equipment used, it's not standardized. The type of, we're using cast iron instead of using stainless steel. All those affect handling of the waste has a very big environmental impact. We need to develop that, and storage of the butter. In terms of refining, nothing is done in refining shea butter in Uganda. And I'm advising that we need to develop a technology where we can refine, remove some of the components, ensure that the shea butter is refined. No shea butter in Uganda currently is refined, and that's a problem. And we need to improve in terms of ensuring that we have shea olein and so that is value addition, which is very important. Next. About technologies, these technologies will currently 80% of the production is done at traditional, and that is almost cumbersome. Nobody can even handle because you cannot produce, you cannot have that for commercial production in terms of using the some traditional technology unless you come up with the technologies to improve that one. I know we like shea butter in the way it is, but we need to develop a technology which is for traditional processing, which enhances and improves the process of production. The cold and the mechanical technologies which are having are so few and very minimal. And though it improves, but we still need a better and automated system for pressing the nut so that the oil is produced from the nut is of quality. There are other technologies that are not being used, like centrifugal, solvent extraction. The waste you see that the cake we are, those things that we're having, is just wasted, yet the oil is there. Almost 15% of the oil in the nut is in the cake, and nothing has happened. That's a waste already. So we need to develop a technology so we can extract the oil from the waste. From the waste. This is what I'm talking about, the specification of shea butter, which we need to look into. Every time people look at the shea butter in terms of color, in terms of smell, but nobody people are producing, but they don't know what are the specifications of shea butter. We need to measure the moisture content of the nut when you are of the oil. It's very essential. The color, the refractive index, the melting point. These are sensitive parameters which is monitored. We need to, if we may, you may not have a lab, but at least you can take a sample to an external lab to ensure that you will understand, am I within the range? Like a free fatty acid is a very essential parameter for any vegetable oil. And we need to ensure that a certain standard is met. If it is beyond that, then there's a problem of handling. And another one is peroxide value. These are very sensitive. So though we prefer that artisan method is the best method, people prefer, but we have to understand whether that thing meets the standard. Next. Fatty acid composition from shea butter, like Margaret said, our Ugandan shea butter is different from West African shea butter. So we need to take that way and we need to document our own ways of doing and develop our own standards. We are unfortunate that little has been documented about the Ugandan shea butter. And a lot of information on the internet among all publications is more of the West African shea butter. And we copy it, so we need a serious documentation focusing on the Nilotica shea butter, which is very important for us and gives us an upper hand in the international market. Because right now the international people are dependent on the West African to even to judge us. So we need to understand what our shea butter look like and what affects the chemical composition of our shea butter. Next. Shea butter, in a way, I'm talking about this because it helps the food aspect in terms of forming different food products. So what makes our shea butter different from West Africa? If you look at ours here, the triglycerides, these are the fatty acids found in shea butter, which make up how they are bound. There are 3 of them. So in fact, the stearic and oleic and stearic are the major ones in our Ugandan shea butter. And it's different from the cocoa shea butter. And to be different from the West African shea butter. So we need to understand that this must be one of the things. So we need, how is ours different? This is actually the West African shea butter. What about ours? What's ours? Nobody has documented ours. So we need to document how ours is different from West African shea butter and how it's different from cocoa butter shea butter. So that you can see whether it can also be used for chocolate, can be used for margarine, can be used for other things. Thank you. Next. What makes shea butter or West Africa is unsulfated, the medicinal component of it. We need to document this. And much of this information document West Africa. What is ours in terms of this chemical composition? Amylin, these phytobiotic components, are they all the same? Or we have unique ones, which even make ours more better and more different from West Africa. So we need a lot of research on this area to ensure that we document this information. Next. Shea butter in terms of food, as limited, although in a community, in the villages, shea butter is dominant as food, but less as cosmetic. But we have actually come out to see that shea butter has more value as a cosmetic compared to food. So we need to look into it. But can we produce other products from shea butter other than eating it, putting it as as other company in food. So we need to develop, can we produce baking fat from shea butter? Can we have an industry? Can we produce margarine? We are dependent on eating palm oil, which is made margarine with palm oil, baking fat with palm oil. What about shea butter? They are talking about chocolate from West Africa mixed with the cocoa butter. What about Uganda and shea butter? Can we have something produced which can enter the market and we dominate it? Next. Cosmetic shea butter I told about is a very essential because it has a diversity of options. So we need to focus on this and see how we can produce a number of products. Body lotion, facial moisturizer. What are the consumers? I saw Margaret, I mean the first Margaret, address issues of what the consumers want to hear today. Does your product have synthetic oils? Most of the community, this question to ask, are they allergic? Are these products safe? Are they having protein products? Even if you are producing shea butter, the question to ask you. And many of these consumers for companies are beginning to make false approach, meeting the consumer expectation. And we need to avoid that. Because when you start meeting what the consumers ask you and produce a product and provide information to a label which meets the consumer, we're having a problem at the end. So far, we need proper engineering of product. We all know the benefits of shea butter. I don't talk about it because it's a good moisturizer. The moisturizer, it protects us from light, anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, all these activities we know about it. And there are many compounds in the shea butter which we need to understand how they work. And we need evidence-based information to justify a claim. There are many claims. I have seen some shea butter with 50 claims or 100 claims, but they can't explain how it works. Trends, we need to look at this. Today, every consumer will want to know whether it cleanses his, cares for his skin, decorates, maintains, and improves the skin. Can we have this? Can we have this maintained by the shea butter aspects of our analytica? It doesn't meet this, so we need to have that organically certified. Many of our members have raised that issue. Very complicated, very expensive. We cannot do that. Okay? Now, for us, shea butter cannot enter into a global production. How can we get into here? 34% of the global oil is from palm, followed by soya bean. Shea butter is not appearing even somewhere. So can we get shea butter into the global map? How can we get it there? So we need to increase production. The market challenges of shea butter are enormous. They have raised it, and I'm actually just emphasizing on them. Shea butter is not known beyond the production area, and we need to talk about it, dominate it, let people understand. In some areas, it's seen as luxury. It's not seen as something for medicine or somebody buys when there's a condition, not daily use. It becomes a therapeutic product. We don't need that. We need to make it a daily use. There are a lot of competition. If shea butter as a vegetable oil, how can they lower the price of shea butter? Because currently vegetable oil like palm, sunflower are lower than shea butter. Can we address the issue of ensuring that we increase production and lower the cost of the shea butter so that it becomes accessible? Like the mentioned issue of supply, it's very complicated because of that. Technology of processing, I know. The market, international market, national market, our market for is rural. Can we get it from a rural area, okay, and have it urban and international? Next, regional. We need tap. I've seen a lot of the region. Our East African region is almost coming to 1 billion people. Africa. So we need to look at how can we tap that market. Especially Kenya has more information about shea butter and Rwanda. Can we tap that market and get it there? Our population is growing. Next.
Francis,
yes?
Just 1 minute now.
Oh, yes, I'm ready. Can you go to the next? Next. Yes, opportunities. But we need to, I can see a lot of shea butter opportunities. If we are not going into refining shea butter, we are not going to go very far. We need to come out to go refining shea butter. Once you refine shea butter, we can have number of products, and that becomes an opportunity for us to expand. tap into the big cosmetic market and the chocolate industry and other mechanisms. And we need increasing increasing demand for shea butter for food in the US, China, India. They are very sensitive. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Omjal, for your presentation. This was so timeful. Thank you so much. Now, so quickly, due to the time is really running so fast. I would like to request our dear Tom Okello to prepare for his presentation as I share the screen. I want to record that all these presentations shall be shared with you. Just if you're very much interested in them, make sure that in the chat that we are saving, you have your your email address written there. But quickly, before we go to the next presenter, Tom Okello, I would like to reecho that this ability for us to really have this convening online, even though it's online, it required a facilitation. And we have our dear company, the Agro Value Added Association and Extension Services, who sponsored this process together with the different stakeholders that has already been mentioned earlier by Professor JB Okulo. So they are just going to share more about them on the chat. So please look up on the chat and reach out to them, support them, look at some of the activities that they're doing. And I really encourage you to support them in different ways, or as well as work with them and look at the different values and objectives that they're contributing towards the value addition of the different and the services in agricultural sector and others. So Tom Okello, I'm just going to share presentation shortly so that you can come on. Okay. Yes. Yes, Mr. Okello, are you there?
I'm there.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, the moderator. I want you to go a bit fast and you go to the next slide. That is my name and my work. The next slide is just giving the content of the presentation. Now, I wanted us to reflect on these statistics for forest because all the presenters have talked about share, the share belt, the parkland, but I wanted to bring this to your attention that yes, the parkland is there, but there is a big challenge with the parkland. To date, Uganda has about 2.5 million hectares of forest cover, which is 12.4% of the land cover. This includes the tropical high forest, which is 626,000 hectares, the woodlands. My interest is on woodland, which is 1,239 hectares. And I also want to note that by 2015, the forest cover of Uganda reduced to about 10% of the 24%, which was 30 years ago in 1990. Continue. Now, I single out the woodlands because subsistence agriculture land increased from 8.4 million hectares in 1990 to 10.5 million hectares in 2019. Meanwhile, the woodland, which is the principal share habitat, decreased from 3.9 million hectares in 1990 to 1.2 million hectares in 2019. So this is where the problem is. We are talking of challenges affecting the share production and the share habitat. The principal habitat, the woodland, is being decimated in the country. I also wanted you to note that by 1990, 70% of our forest was outside the forest reserves. To date, we have only about 41% of the forest outside the forest reserve. So this one shows you what has happened to the share belt. When you look at the maps from 1990, look at northern Uganda, very green. Come to 2017, northern Uganda is getting more and more brown. So that is the share habitat, which has been converted from a woodland to agricultural land, which is the yellow, and then the brown, which is bushland. Continue. Now, I wanted us to look at we are talking of policy, legal, institutional frameworks, and incentives. This is just defining what they are. Continue. Continue to the next. Now, what are the key governing institutions for the management of the Shea habitat and the Shea trees in this country? I looked at the Ministry of Water and Environment, Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. These institutions are responsible for policy formulations, legislations, and regulation development. They are responsible for inspection, monitoring, and coordination of the other agencies and ministries. I looked at the National Environment Management Authority. Francis talked about provisions for offset, but also there are other provisions which I'm going to talk about later. This is the principal agency responsible for environment in the country. Next. I looked at other institutions which are responsible for the day-to-day management or governance of the Shea habitat and the Shea trees. I looked at the local government, somebody talked about it. Local government have that provisions for setting policies and guidelines and enacting ordinances and bylaws, including for conservation of the Shea trees. Local government approves work plans and budgets. One wonders how much is put to conservation of the Shea. They do inspections. When I looked at the National Forest Authority, which is responsible for the management of the forest reserves in the country. They do inspections. They're supposed to give technical guidance to the local governments. They're supposed to promote innovative approaches for local community participation in the management of forest reserves. Next.
Mokelo, I hope we haven't lost you.
How did somebody unmute me from there? I did not touch the computer.
Oh, sorry, probably.
Yes, now I want to look at the legal and policy provisions for the conservation of the Shea trees in Uganda. Look at the Republic of Uganda, the Constitution of 1995 as amended. I looked at the Land Act of 2010. Section 43 in particular talks about utilization of land according to the various laws. Most of the Shea trees are existing on private land, on communal land. The law is saying if you have your land, use it in accordance with the forestry, the environment, the wildlife, the mineral laws of this country. Therefore, it is empowering you and telling you and obliging you to protect the resources which is on your land. I looked at the Local Government Act, which gives the powers to the local government to enact bylaws. And are we having ordinances? Are we having the bylaws for the conservation of the Sheas? I looked at the National Environment Act. The new Act of 2019 has a section which puts in place measures for declaration of special conservation areas. Can we declare some of these Shea butter areas, special conservation areas, so that we can protect them? I looked at also section 60, which talks about conservation of biological resources, ex situ and in situ. This one can be applied. I looked at the National Forestry and Tree Planting Act of 2003, which brings provisions for declaring forest reserves for the preservation of vulnerable species. The Shea tree is a vulnerable species. Can we declare some of these areas local forest reserves, for example? I looked at declaration of community forests. Can we make them community forests in consultation with the district land boards? I looked at turning some of these areas as private natural forests. Can the community, can members who are owning this land allow them to be their private natural forests and protect them within the law? I looked at the ownership of trees in section 27. Section 27 of the National Forestry and Tree Planting Act gives the ownership of the trees to an individual. So the trees belongs to the people. Why then can't we protect them? I looked at section 30 and 31, which allows the minister and even the local government to declare some species as reserve species or protected species. And the Shea butter under the National Forest and Tree Planting Regulation of 2016 is declared a reserve species. Therefore, there is a law for protecting it. Under the enabling policies, I looked at the forest policy of 2001, which gave provisions for how do we capitalize on the economic, social, and environmental opportunities in forestry without undermining the value of the resource base. How do we promote and regulate greater private sector involvement? I'm very happy all the presenters who did the presentation before me are from the private sector, except the discussants. Yes, how do we leverage on the private sector to develop the value chain for Shea in this country? How do we make Shea contribute to the rural livelihoods? So many people have talked about livelihoods. Mind you, a resource which does not provide benefits to the people is not protected. I looked at the decentralization policy, Operation Wealth Creation. Operation Wealth Creation is promoting the development of high-value crops. Can we get into contact and start engaging Operation Wealth Creation to support our private sector players who are trying to develop the Shea value chain? I looked at the National Development Plan, which talks about inclusive growth and value chain development. In fact, when you look at chapter 9, they say the government intends to increase income and employment through sustainable management and value addition of the forest resources. So this is provided for under this plan. I looked at the national strategy for the conservation and sustainable use of the threatened shea butter trees in Uganda. The strategy is there. Are we implementing it? There is also a presidential directive of 2006 on the protections and value addition of the shea butter, of the shea products. Now, why don't we leverage on this political will and then we develop the shea industry? In conclusion, I wanted to say that there is adequate institutional, legal, and policy framework for the conservation of the shea trees, but with very limited implementation. So what is the problem? The framework has not adequately protected and conserved the shea trees. Why? What should be done? Why are the shea trees disappearing? Why is it becoming vulnerable? The community-based management approaches has collapsed. One of the presenters talked about community involvement in conservation of the shea. Those communal land is no longer there. We are now having private land. Some of them are fenced. But why is it that we are losing the battle? Can we rejuvenate the community-based approaches? The trees are threatened and are very vulnerable. There's a lot of impunity, I think, caused by corruption. Aporo Dennis, when he was introducing himself, he said he's from the granary of the Shea, which is Otuke. Mr. Aporo, there is a lot of impunity. The trees are being decimated. We are losing the battle and losing the opportunity for the only perennial crop, which is in northern Uganda. We are only relying on these annual crops. You grow potato this year, next year you're growing beans, you must dig for 3 months, and then the thing disappears when you have harvested it. But shea is a perennial crop. Some of them have lived for 200 years. Why can't we conserve them? I also looked at the opportunities exist, opportunities for value chains, research, opportunity for value chain development exist under the Uganda Industrial Research Institute and under the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. Mr. Okello is going to talk after me. He will tell you about these opportunities. Yes, somebody said getting it is very difficult. It is lip service, but let us explore it. Let us form a consortium now. Let us get and engage these people. Let us look for these opportunities. The market is available, as you have seen in the presentation. The factors of production are lacking. We don't have the technology, we don't have the capital, we don't have the necessary skills to develop the shea industry. Finally, Dr. Mujal gave a list of all the shea products. Why don't we publicize these products and have policy brief? We can engage with the politicians, we can engage with the policymakers, so that at least the shea also becomes a crop of national importance. People have talked about coffee development authority, cotton development authority. Why don't we have a shea development authority? Thank you so much for listening. I salute you all.
Okay, Tom, your presentation made me smile all through. I hope you posed a lot of questions here. I hope Patrick, Dr. Patrick Biakagaba will answer some. Patrick, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I'll be able to answer. My name is Patrick Kiriakagaba from the Department of Environmental Management at Makerere University. Mr. Tom Okello, the EDNFA, has ably outlined the legal regime relevant to the Shea tree. It's evident that the tree continues to experience degradation despite the existing legal protection that we have for this tree, including having this tree as a reserved tree species in our legislative framework. There's adequate evidence that the population of this tree is indeed threatened, in my opinion, due to several socio-economic, policy and institutional factors that Mr. Tom Okello has raised. And my view is that material and non-material incentives are required to increase returns for landowners that maintain these trees through what Professor Dwanzoa called sustainable commercialization. The key word there is sustainable. And as Tom was making his presentation, I picked a statement. He said, "A resource that does not benefit people is not protected." This is my favorite quote from you, Mr. Tom Okello, in 2021. But there's also another quote from Neil Byron that he made in 2011. He said, "Farmers will plant, preserve, conserve trees only when they perceive that the trees are more useful and beneficial than the alternative land use activities." These two quotes are informing my proposals on what can be done. I have the following as institutional and policy incentives that I think can change the current situation. I would start by mentioning that we need to support shea nut producers or shea butter producers to access and participate in global shea commodity chains. And this can be through certification, investing in superior production technologies and logistic systems, technology transfer, reducing tariffs on inputs. It's still very expensive to bring in equipment that we need in order to improve our production. But also we need to create opportunities for more foreign direct investment in shea processing for export. We also need to support developing of local shea product enterprises through establishment of incubation centers, especially in universities, research institutions, and industry. I would be very glad to hear that maybe the School of Forestry, Environmental and Geographical Sciences at Makerere University has an incubation center that is helping nurture small businesses or building entrepreneurial capacity, or providing startup, rather supporting startups with relevant business networks to enable them to thrive. It's not easy to just penetrate the market if you do not have somebody who is nurturing you. So we need to have these centers to provide more training opportunities and provide technology support and mentoring. I also think we need to undertake more targeted research. And Dr. Omojal did mention a couple of areas that we are still very limited, and that requires doing more research, doing more education and training on the entire value chain in order to enhance product development and differentiation. Those of you who understand the world of marketing, product differentiation is very critical, because you're able to produce products that will stand out and also be superior to the alternatives on the market. I hear many stories on shea being better than cocoa, better than oil palm, but have we made those products that will really make shea products keep standing out when it comes to competition? We also need to reduce current policy barriers in order to enhance local market participation. For instance, one of the colleagues did mention that there is too much bureaucracy, what we call red tape, to get certified by Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And this is an impediment to access shea markets. But I'm also aware within the landscape, we have several roadblocks, call them road tolls. Some of them are legal, some are illegal, some are formal, some are informal, where they get, the guys on the roadblocks get bribes from shea producers. So all these restrict or limit access to market. We need to establish communication and information sharing platforms in order to improve access to market information. We may have to invest a lot in ICT and also the network of actors in the shea industry. Information is very critical for marketing of any product, and shea is not different. We need to support investments in production technology to improve efficiency and quality of shea products. The current process is extremely labor intensive. Each time I look at those ladies trying to make a living out of processing shea, I really feel sad. We need to find ways of improving the efficiency, especially energy. Gradually, we shall need better ways of saving energy when processing shea butter. Infrastructure for quality assurance, many speakers have spoken about the post-harvest handling methods. This can only improve if we're able to invest in better infrastructure, but also training of our farmers who are involved in this. We need to promote vertical and horizontal integration of these producers in order to reduce transaction costs, but also improve on access to information or maximize returns on investment. Currently, people are only involved in one or two activities of the shea value chain. We need to provide incentives that will enable, I already talked about shea, but rather shea product diversification in order to widen the market base. We need to mobilize capital for strategic investment. Many of us have been talking about equipment. These equipment are very expensive, things like dryers, machinery for roasting and oil extraction, refining, or even the fractionation equipment or storage facilities like the silos. Those require heavy capital investment, and that can only be provided either by government or by other non-state actors that are interested in this industry. If we're to go further, we may have to start speaking about improving the quality standards. We may have to develop these quality standards and also promote certification. If you say this shea butter product is from Otuke or Agago, is the quality more, okay, they might not be the same, but is the quality at least agreeable? Have we agreed on the quality of these products? And as we do this, we need to ensure that the products are competitive in order to meet consumer demand and taste, especially of the foreign markets. We saw the potential buyers, not many of them are from the African continent. So as we develop these standards, let's be aware of the standards abroad. We also need to ensure that sanitary and phytosanitary standards that are applied by developed countries are met in the country. Remember, this is a product that is also considered as a food for some people, or this is from plants. So these phytosanitary standards, especially of the international market, should be considered as we develop our own standards. And this will require us to change our attitude towards compliance, because many of us are not interested in complying with regulations. But this, if we are to achieve it, requires a total change of mindset. We also need to promote shea product exports to countries that are close to Uganda, but having relatively large economies. I hate to say this, but the Kenyan economy is bigger than us. And it's very easy to export these products to Kenya. As a landlocked country, Uganda, it's easy to use roads. And so we need to start exploring that market too. We could use the regional trade agreements that we have, like EAC and COMESA. Lately, we have also added DRC, and we are constructing a road to access that market. And I'm aware that there is shea butter in the DRC, but maybe the economy could be better in that part of DRC. We also need to improve on the physical infrastructure where we have the shea nut industry thriving. When I had just started my journey in this industry, a couple of times people carried me on their shoulders because the bridges had given way, the banks had given way, Tuke and many parts of Agago. So we need to improve the road network there to make sure that we have motorable roads, electricity, storage facilities, telecommunication, internet. I can imagine the people who are somewhere in Olilim trying to follow us up. I'm not very certain whether the internet is stable in Olilim. Yet they need information about the shea industry. I'm about to finish. We need to formulate favorable fiscal policies, especially tax reductions or rebates, subsidies, loan guarantee schemes, to the actors involved in the entire shea butter value chain. This will help to promote investment in shea products and also increase net returns. I listened carefully, and nobody mentioned about the limited financial inclusion in the shea belt of Uganda. This tree is found mostly in very remote areas of Uganda where you don't easily find commercial banks and other financial institutions. So we need to encourage these banks to come up with tailor-made financing products for shea producers, because we know the category of farmers involved in the shea industry. They are not very rich, but they produce products that are very useful to the economy, but also to their local livelihoods. So financial inclusion will, at the end of the day, enhance savings, especially from the surplus, and then they will reinvest it in the value chain, but also it will improve access to capital. Then we need to support forest law enforcement to prevent wood extraction of the shea tree through facilitating local governance institutions. I hate to say this, but I will say it in Agago, the local people are more committed, more responsive in fighting what we call political corruption when it comes to the shea nut tree, compared to my districts in Lango, especially Otuke, and as you move towards Teso land. So we need to strengthen the local institutions to make sure that they enforce their traditional rules, but also enforce some of the local legislation that has come up and the national legislation that we have that protects this tree. We also need to clarify and strengthen tenure rights of this tree under the different land tenure systems. I observed that sometimes because of the unclear tenure system, especially under communal customary tenure system, it's not clear who owns the trees. And we often have a challenge, especially with the women who in many of our communities do not have exclusive rights on land. So sometimes they are limited in terms of what they can do. Like many of us have been mentioning that we should start planting, but where are you planting the trees? Will they own them when they plant them? So these are things we need to clarify. And my pet suggestion, I hope this will be taken up, especially by my colleagues who work directly in the government. We need to start speaking about developing land use plans and enforcing them as provided for in the Physical Planning Act. And in these land use plans, we should be able to come up with ideas of conserving landscapes that are covered by shea nut trees. This will require us to support local governments in order to develop these land use plans, but also support them in ensuring that people comply. Then we need to build the capacities of landowners that have shea trees in the area of forest and tree management. I had many people talk about the silviculture of this tree. I think that's very critical. We also need to build their capacity in business management, organization management, and of course, forest governance. Many of the challenges we have on this tree are because of the breakdown on forest governance. So this is something that we need to work on. Lastly, in my many thoughts that I've shared, we need to enhance the density and productivity of this tree that gives us shea butter products in order to ensure that we have a sustainable supply. We do not want to reach a situation where we have excited the world that Uganda has the best or the most unique shea butter products, and then we do not have the trees that will enable us to have the supply. And this will require us to provide subsidies, seedlings, and the rest that help us in the establishment, but also extension services to the landowners that have these trees. I'm aware we do not have a very formal forest extension service arrangement or framework. And this is something that we shall definitely have to consider in the policy that is being reviewed and gradually maybe the Forest Act. In conclusion, for those who lost me along the way, I argue that material and non-material incentives that can promote sustainable management of shea standard trees or product development and marketing are required for the growth and development of the shea industry. The duty bearers that are responsible for enforcement of the regulations that we have on the shea trees, we need to be a little bit more responsive than they are today in addressing the current and emerging threats, especially political corruption, where we have things like orders from above, you know who I am, and so on. These are things we need to address if we are to keep this tree in order to sustain the industry. And finally, we have to build the capacity of local communities in the aspects that I mentioned earlier. All this can only be done if we approach it using what we call a multi two-pronged approach that involves both state and non-state actors. I thank you for your very kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Doctor, so much for that wonderful presentation. Somebody took the privilege, since we didn't restrict the sharing of the screen. I think either they were testing the computer. I need to echo that there's a lot of rich information and discussion going on through the chat. So if you have some time, you can flip in there. Doctor, there are people appreciating your presentation and also the previous discussant. Anthony, Dr. Anthony Egeru mentioned something. I'll just give you 1 minute as we jump to the next presenter. I need to mention that, that our time is, it's already 9 past 6, according to my time here. Time has already gone, but would like to give the three discussants or presenters just those few minutes. Some little more time. I would like to request this actually from all of us to give them an opportunity so that we can be able to listen to them. So Anthony, you had something, I think you were chatting something. Maybe I can give you 1 second or 2 to say something. Thank you. Meanwhile,
thank you very much, Thomas. I think from me, it's really one of the things that we really need to do with the local communities is getting them to be able to appreciate and hold money in their pockets as a result of this share. My argument is always simple, that you can't keep restricting a hungry person that don't cut the tree when his children are going to sleep hungry. So unless we are able to sort out the basic needs of the human being, food, shelter, and derived a meaningful income and livelihood from the share, then the people will not continuously begin to appreciate the value of the share. So we need to, as part of building capacity, we need to be able to ensure that the share agripreneurship is real, fundamental, and part and parcel of our process. So conservation is important, but it's much better when people are able to realize a meaningful outcome, which is probably financial or otherwise from this share. I agree there is a lot to be done, but I think we have started to work together. There is a lot of things that are happening. And I can see Jasper is beginning to present, and as he's beginning to present, although his ministry has a bit of challenges right now, the key issue is from the Ministry of Science and Technology, you have a lot of, you've been giving some innovation fund. How do you begin to think through to help and support specific innovation activities for shea nut development? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony, for that input. And this takes us to Jasper. Jasper, I would like to request you to limit maybe to 5 minutes of your presentation, because time is up and I believe some people may not be able to wait longer. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm being heard.
Sure, you're loud and clear.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I need to really take this opportunity to thank everybody who is still around, who are still around. And I'm just going straight. My name is Jasper Okello. I work at the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, which has actually been transferred of recent to the Office of the President. The next slide. Many presenters have actually talked about the share and all that, but I still need to echo that the efforts by Koval Uganda in the 1990s that actually brought so many other things onto share. And if we are to go by that, you'll find that when Koval started work in the share belt in northern Uganda, it led to the formation of the Northern Uganda Shea Producers Association. This is a local community-based organization before the coming in of other NGOs like AT, Uganda, Bread for Life, and others. The next slide. Yes. Go back. In 2006, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, issued a directive towards protecting the shea tree in the shea belt. And in that instruction, he also directed that a factory for shea butter production be established. However, the directive up to today has not been implemented, partly due to lack of comprehensive strategy in the exploitation. However, NEMA, being one of the government agencies, carried out community awareness, environmental compliance, and others. Next. NEMA also has been engaging the private sector through Export Promotion Board to formulate expansion of markets for shea butter. I have heard that being mentioned by the private sector, and also in promoting shea butter as a bio-trade product. In addition, NEMA has also engaged the private sector through Export Promotion Board to expand the markets of shea butter products and its competitiveness in the value chain worldwide. Then at the moment, Export Promotion Board is promoting shea butter as a bio-trade. In addition, the UNBS has also developed national national standards and certification. Next. Government analytical laboratories and chemotherapy research in collaboration with others also did a lot of quality tests on shea butter. Then Makerere University, NACRI, URI have been involved in development of shea value-added products like bread, candies, biscuits, and the rest. Makerere University and NARO, specifically NAFORI, has actually conducted various laboratory and on-farm stock adoptive researches in Ugandan shea parkland. Then of recent, about 3, 4, 5 years ago, specifically NARO institution, that is Ngerazadi, has actually started a massive stem cutting and field grafting for shea trees for rapid multiplication and fast maturity. Then also, I have mentioned those ones because all those are public institutions which are actually involved or has actually been in the area of intervention. Now I need to really take you straight away to the public sector intervention, specifically the government intervention in this area, whereas the public sector's intervention from research to market is evident. There were limited interventions at industrial research level to develop new products. Most of these which we have been talking about are mainly duplications of products which are actually elsewhere. You find we are also trying to do this and this and this, but real new products have actually not been developed. Indeed, there has not been any specific public sector's organization responsible for organizing and consolidating these efforts, mainly by the other MDAs and also the private sectors, because most of the presenters who presented before the two of us were actually from the private sectors. And you could see that most of them were actually working on their own. This means the effort to develop the shea industry and the parklands remain scattered and uncoordinated up to date. The next one. Then, still under interventions, then MOSTI responded with a 5-year public sector intervention with a project we are calling the Shea Industrial Development Project, which actually is still being finalized, but the project was approved for funding, And we are expecting that within this financial year, we are going to get the first grant to begin on this project. We are calling it the Shea Industrial Development Project. Now, the Shea Development Project will actually construct one centralized research and development facility in Otuke district, that is in northern Uganda. Dr. Byakagaba said that is the epitome of the Shea. Then in the R&D facility, there will be an established laboratory unit, and also the facility will also host a team of scientists in exploring the entire value chain. Two, the facility will establish 3 techno-incubation facilities spread in the district local governments of Pade, Moyo, and Amuria. Then also under that, there will be facility technology transfers to generate transfers that will generate from its research and development facility. Then also these techno-incubation facilities will also be accessible to the village pickers, individual small and large scale rural share processors. Then they will also have the storage, extraction, and formulation units. Next. The public sector intervention through this will actually have about 4 outputs, which are actually listed there. The next one. The next slide. Then who are these stakeholders who need public sector support? There are so many village share nut pickers, post-harvest processors like those who presented before, the local buying agents, the rural, and all that. The next slide. What about the beneficiaries of this public sector intervention? This project, which is a 5-year project from this financial year to 2026, the small scale industries, the agricultural sector, the environmental sector, the local government, whose tax base is actually expected to increase. Then the farmer groups, innovators, and processors. The next slide. The cultural leaders, most of us have actually been saying that conservation and this, and yet we can also use the cultural leaders, institutions. Then the small, medium enterprises, which actually forms a huge percentage of the economy's GDP, the PWDs and the youth. The next. Thus, this intervention that the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, and also the government of Uganda has come out with is actually as a result of the 2006 presidential promulgation about the share. Then also, this intervention is actually addressing the NDP 3 program area of innovation, technology development, and transfer, which is actually resting on MOSTI. Then it is also addressing the issue of public sector's intervention in science, technology, engineering, and innovation, and also provision of support to standardization and commercialization, and also provide interventions as in NDP3 to support the creation and growth of local business. Then also worldwide business models built within STI ecosystems contribute to improve quality of life. And that is what we are actually looking for in the rural areas: quality of life, employment, and wealth creation. Then establishment of interventions in the share industry would encourage industrialization and economic development as in NDP3 Agenda 2063, and also in other government documents. Then public sector interventions would also lead to creation of new share farms. Then the public sector intervention would also be would be a response to the need to create more jobs. Next. I think I'm done with that.
Jasper, I think you'll just make your conclusion. Your slide stopped there.
So now what actually is happening is that government has actually come up to address the issues which has actually been a gap in the share industry by a public intervention project. And the project is a 5 years project, which actually will put this facility in Otuke. And after this facility is actually there, it is expected that the issue of research and development and other issues related to share will actually be addressed. And it is also expected that government will work with the private sector, will work with the development partners in order to improve on the livelihood and also incomes, and also improve on the rural development of the areas. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Okello Jasper from the Ministry of Science and Technology. I think looking at the previous presentation and some of the questions that were posed, we are seeing that the government is, through the different initiatives, coming up with the solutions that we hope in the next 6 years, 5 years, as you mentioned, we would be able to have a difference from where we are now. We only request that as some of these things are being implemented and looking at the forum that we have today, we see that there's a lot of information, there's a lot of ideas. So we could actually have, maybe through the Ministry of Science and Technology, organize a forum whereby before all these initiatives take off, the inclusion of the ideas from the different researchers, the different key players are included so that we all benefit at the end of the day. I would like to, because of time, I would like to call upon Professor Obua to make his remarks. I'll just give him maybe 5 minutes. Professor, are you there?
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. And thank you for those who have still persevered up to now. We had 152 participants when the presentation started. Now we have 86. We've lost about 66 participants on the webinar. So I'll try to be a bit quick, Tom. Thank you very much. And thank you for those who are still hanging in there. I would like to very, very quickly give my additional thoughts on this topic. In fact, when I was requested to give my ideas, I thought about public sector. I got curious to know what is public sector. Then I found that it is part of economy controlled by the state. Public sector is comprised of organizations that are owned and operated by the government and exist to provide not-for-profit services for citizens. Now, with that in mind, I said, okay, if that is what is private sector, then what role should it play in meeting the aspirations stated in the theme of this year's World Share Day? Now, in that theme, there's a question about taking action. Should public sector take any actions now? A lot has been said by Executive Director Tom Okello, and a lot has also been said by Jasper, which is very good. Now, I would like to say, yes, action should be taken. There's a lot of communication in the chat room that something needs to be done, should have probably been done yesterday. So a lot needs to be done and done very quickly. And a lot of ideas have been given by Patrick, Biakagaba, those were extremely helpful. So for me, my question is, how can public sector contribute to greater productivity of share for improved household incomes and rural development? Now, to answer this question, I would like to compare share with coffee, two commodity crops with high market values. You get to understand why I've decided to compare these two crops in the course of my contribution to this topic. Now, coffee is a flagship commodity crop because it is a source of income for farmers and also a source of foreign exchange for the country. Share is also a flagship commodity crop, and we've been told it's a flagship commodity crop that is also perennial, because it is a source of income for farmers and has a huge export potential as demonstrated by earlier presenters that can earn a lot of foreign exchange for this country. Now, coffee has brought public sector and private sector together to work really in the real sense of the PPP, public-private sector partnership. For example, Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives is working with private sector actors like cooperative unions, like coffee cooperative unions, such as BCU and coffee exporters. Shea has not yet brought together public and private sector actors to work together in the real sense of PPP. Coffee has leveraged resources, capacity, business acumen from the private sector that have been investing actually a lot in enhancing productivity of coffee. For some reason, Shea has not yet done so. So the next question I want to ask is, can we borrow a leaf from coffee? Yes, I think we can. But some people may argue that coffee is grown while Shea is growing wild. Yes, it is true. But ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. Through Uganda Coffee Development Authority, which is one of the agencies in the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, 1% of export earnings from coffee is given to UCDA, and 10% of that amount, which is about 2 billion shillings per annum, is given to NARO, which is passed on to the National Coffee Research Institute to carry out research on coffee to enhance its productivity and market value. Now, a fundamental question I would like to ask is this. Like UCDA, can we establish Shea Development Authority, like Tom Okello calls it, Shea Development Authority or Shea Development Organization, to enhance the productivity and market value of Shea products? Listen to this again. Unlike coffee, which is exported as raw material, as coffee beans, Shea apparently is not exported as nuts. We've heard a lot of presentations and expressions on the fact that Shea is actually processed as sold as processed products, oil, butter, shampoo, soap, lotion, and so on and so forth. Now, in view of what I've just said, I think it is realistic to observe that Shea can have comparative and competitive advantage over coffee in leveraging public sector support to enhance its productivity and market value. Now, the total number of farmers or households in eastern and northern Uganda involved in managing Shea on their farmlands, processing Shea and selling Shea products could in fact be comparable or even exceeds the number of coffee farmers in this country. Statistics indicate that the number of coffee farmers in terms of household coffee farmers is 1.7 million. And the acreage under coffee is nearly 400,000 hectares. Now, compared to Shea parklands, I think we have a much higher number of households in the Shea parklands and a much bigger acreage of land that is under Shea. So in many respects, Shea deserves having a similar organization like UCDA to leverage greater support for it. So finally, Shea parklands is found in the agroecological zone that covers large areas of eastern and northern Uganda. The agroecological zone actually covers 45 districts. That is about 30% of the entire number of districts in this country. And it is served by 4 public agricultural research institutes of NARO. One in Serere, serving Tesa sub-region, one in Nabuin, serving Karamoja sub-region, one in Ngeta, serving Lao sub-region, and one in Abi, serving West Nile sub-region. Now, given the importance of Shea in the economies of these sub-regions in eastern and northeastern Uganda, I think it is logical to advocate for creation of a Shea Research Institute to carry out research on the Shea value chain from propagation to commercial products for local and export markets. Therefore, like coffee, Shea deserves having a National Research Institute established and funded through a PPP arrangement like UCDA does. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to propose some food for thought that can be considered as recommendations that are coming from this webinar and then fast forwarded by the organizers of the webinar. Through a PPP arrangement, number one, I would like to propose that we advocate for and recommend the establishment of a national organization responsible for coordinating all the dynamics related to shea as a commodity crop, like it is the case with Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Number two, I would like to propose that we advocate for and recommend the establishment of a national research institute at the level of NACORI. You see, NACORI, National Coffee Research Institute, initially started as a coffee research program and later became a coffee research center in Kituza, where we now have National Coffee Research Institute. Similarly, we can start Shea Research Center under NAFORI, and it can be located anywhere deemed appropriate in the Shea parklands. And later it can become a center and perhaps later upgraded to a research institute. So these are my foods for thought that I would like to put forward. And thank you very much, organizers, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Joseph Obua. Unfortunately, I didn't hear you introduce yourself, and maybe a few of us do not know you more. Is that okay? Just 1 minute?
1 minute. My name is Professor Joseph Obua from Department of Forestry, Biodiversity and Tourism, the School of Forestry, Environmental and Geographical Sciences in Makerere University. And I was speaking a little eloquently on NARO because I chair the Governing Council of NARO. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for that. Like you mentioned, Professor, our participants are reducing and the number is dwindling so fast. So I'll just request the next presenter who is just checking on the name here. Okay, I'm sure, okay, sorry about that. So Obua Daniel, please, you prepare for your presentation. I'm just going to share a screen in 1 second. Obua, are you there, Daniel?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay.
I'm there. Yes.
All right. Just 1 second and then you can.
Thomas, there are hands up from Jasper and then Manuel.
Okay, let me start with Emmanuel. Emmanuel's hand has been up. I just, sorry.
Yes, my hands have been up because of a reason I've kept from the beginning up to now. I work with Uganda National Bureau of Standards and I've worked for 17 years. For this particular reason, all the things they're talking about standardization certification, no product in the world can be certified without a standard. And Jasper Okello said there is already a standard. So I'm encouraging everybody who is saying the product have not been certified to make sure that they access the standard. And that is the basis upon which UNBS certified products. So there is no bureaucracy at all in any process of certification. And UNBS cannot pass a product that have not passed the set standard. So I also encourage everybody who has been participating in this webinar to at least participate in a product development of standards if they are called upon. That is when your product will enter the national and international market. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Jasper, just maybe 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to actually say that the 2 or 3 slides that I did not present, actually you stopped me from presenting. It answers some of the questions or issues which are being raised in the chat. Now, to maybe mention something, what we are actually coming up with, like the intervention, the shared development project is actually going to be a fully funded project that will cover all this that actually Professor has just mentioned. It's actually 5 years and it is phased out. Example, this financial year, when we get the fund, we are going to do a stakeholders analysis, we are going to do feasibility study, and we are also going to do stakeholder mapping, including setting up an office space to begin with. Structural design and all that will be done this financial year. So I wish I had presented that, it would have actually answered some of the questions which are being raised. But anyway, I will share that and it will actually be shared together with the stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Apologies, Jasper, but thank you for highlighting that it's part of the presentation. I need to reckon that the presentation shall be shared and hopefully some of the queries in the chat shall be answered. Okay, Daniel, please, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, not 10.
It's okay. Thank you. My name is Daniel Oboa, a PhD student at Sokoine University of Agriculture. I'm going to present on the topic about the sustainability of the shea baratry. Next slide. In this section, I will just talk about the loss in the population, the reduction in the population of shea trees. And the tree regenerates naturally, but it is currently being impacted by the seed being recalcitrant. Being recalcitrant means the seed loses viability so quickly. So if it doesn't get an optimum condition for germination, it will not germinate. And the next section, people already talk about them. You move to the next. The tree takes about 30 years to mature, but may bear fruit in 15 to 25 years. And currently, the shea parkland is characterized by a majority of old trees with very reduced fruit yield. And this is a 2004 research by Kulo. The stocking is 5 to 7 trees per hectare, which I think right now it has greatly reduced. It takes an average lifespan of 250 years. The semi-domesticated shea on farm consists of heterozygous individuals with very low fruit yield due to cross-pollination. Why vegetative propagation? It's because vegetative propagation would result into multiplication and quick multiplication of superior genotypes, especially grafting, which would shorten the maturity period, and cutting also would shorten the maturity period if the material is obtained from mature crop. This photo on the right, this was a grafting technology of vegetative method that was conducted in Duari, and the tree is currently growing. Just like Professor JB said, there is just now need to train people on how to farmers to graft. And then in vitro. Why in vitro? In vitro provide a very quick mean of multiplication of germplasm. Move to the next slide. Next slide. The reason for vegetative propagation, it would rejuvenate the older shea parkland and shorten the maturity period, and also provide an increased fruit nut yield with a uniform and reliable fruit yield to sustain the shea value chain. Then provides an alternative germplasm planting material and quick and massive multiplication of superior germplasm, and in the end sustain the tree crop and its conservation. Next slide, please. Why in vitro? In vitro provides a clonal propagation method that involves taking plant material and then multiplying them in a culture house. And why is it? Because currently shea is not as the most difficult to propagate using the in vitro, but this has been successful for a very close member of the same family, Anania spinosa, and I think this will also be applied for the same. So there is need for massive multiplication of superior genotype. It can be possible through in vitro if the propagation protocol is standardized. Next. Challenges. Currently, there is lack of expertise to manage tree improvement and quality germplasm. And then also there is no state-of-the-art in vitro laboratory for trees in the country. Just like Professor Bu has pointed that they has suggested for an establishment of a fully fledged institution, there is need to incorporate also, just like Jasper said, to incorporate also in the plan development of an in vitro laboratory for multiplication, for quick multiplication. And then shortage of planting materials, it does exist. So the in vitro would provide a quick method for providing the planting material. Next. Way forward, need to train more professionals in tissue culture technology, and then training farmers on propagation grafting. When I was doing a grafting research in Aduari, when we got the success, most of the farmers were very much interested and asking that they need to be trained on grafting. So in the same vein, if a fully fledged authority is established for the share, all this could be accomplished. And then also the establishment of a fully fledged state-of-the-art in vitro laboratory. Thank you. Then conclusively, just like I said, I am a student. Soon I will be embarking on the standardization of the propagation protocol with a special interest on in vitro, probably next year, to enhance the production of superior planting material for enhancing the shea butter free and conservation in Uganda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that quick presentation. That was really, really in time. I would like to request Dr. Clement Okia to make his remarks as quick as possible. Thank you.
Hello, is it possible to allow me share my screen?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for those who have persevered up to this time. It's great meeting you all. And so I'm happy to provide some insights on what has been just presented, and maybe just my other thoughts on the subject in general. And so the last session is research and development needs for sustaining shea productivity. Thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. And he has pointed many things: the species naturally regenerating, and the seed is recalcitrant. Recalcitrant means that it loses viability very fast, so it raises very many challenges in propagating it. I have been involved since 2007 on the shea conservation because I'm a member of the CGR team that works on gene banks. And so one of the things is that we have to conserve shea. We have replicated the shea seed from Uganda in 3 other countries, including Ghana, such that in event of anything, we have the resources. But we also have field gene banks in Uganda. We have one in Ngeta, we have others in other places. And the population is threatened, he has mentioned, it takes long to germinate, to fruit. And the population in the world has more big trees and small, a few small trees. That poses a challenge. But the good thing is that the trees are long-lived. And so we really need to work towards this. So the vegetative propagation of the spirogenotypes is welcomed by Obua and others. I know JB Odoi, Ogwali, and the Biakagavas have contributed all towards this work. But I don't want to go into the details that he has presented, but allow me to just add something. He raised some challenges. And in them, I also saw opportunities. For example, lack of expertise in tree improvement. I have always argued with colleagues in Makerere and elsewhere in Naro that let's maybe not struggle so much into tree improvement lab, but we already have a plant improvement program at Makerere, I think Mercy. We need to get people of trees into this program. I have discussed this with Professor Bua and Dr. Richard Edema, and we already have Odoi Juventine from Nafori in this program. We need to have many foresters in this to take on the challenge of tree breeding, because tree breeding, a tree is a plant. So we need to learn the principles of plant breeding and apply them into trees. No state-of-the-art laboratories. We could start with Kabanyoro 1, that is already there. People have done some work, and some narrow institutes can also, we can use the facilities to do this work. Shortage of planting materials. Once we develop the vegetative propagation, and then we can train other people to do it, we can commercialize the technology just as has happened with the colonial eucalyptus. Just some of my thoughts on general research and development, that on shea, we need to support the producers to add value rather than just collecting and selling nuts. The raw nuts, they need to own a stake in the value chain. And then the other thing is that, yes, vegetative propagation is good, but we need to focus more in the near future. We need to focus more on managing the wild population in the parklands. And these are common property resources. There are challenges, but there are methods that can be used to do this. And then also focus on the participatory domestication, building on the work of Okulo and Biakagaba and others. And the other thing is, because really we are losing some of the good attributes, we need to establish the field gene banks. We have one at Ngeta, the one in Teso was affected. We need to manage these. And the Nafori and ICRAF have expanded the one in Ngeta because we had the smaller one, and now we're expanding, and we've been studying it for the last 13 years. And then also long-term funding for research and development in Shea. Francis Ogwal talked about the presidential initiative, and I want to thank Professor Bua for thinking of probably a center for research in Shea and later grow it into an institute. And I was just thinking, can we build on the project that the Minister of Science and Technology is working around to do this? Because I was thinking, if we just set infrastructure in Opuke without a link to existing institutions, maybe narrow universities or private people, then we may be creating another white elephant. We need to create institutions that will last for time. And then community training and incubation centers. I think I'm also happy that Gaspar raised this issue in his presentation. Can we rally the youth and women who just collect the nuts to be the one that can be trained to add value and sell some of the products locally and some of the centers? And then propagation by seed, and that can continue. But you know, when I looked at the theme, it talks about fruit trees starting with the Shea, and the presidential initiative also, it has room for expansion. I want us to think, even as we develop Shea, but also think about other fruit trees. We have Shea, we have a tamarind. In a study that I conducted in 2005, when you consider the whole of northern and eastern Uganda, the tamarind actually comes on top because of the wider coverage, followed by Shea. Then you have the desert date. And let's also think of medicinal trees. We have just heard about Wabugia. We also did a study on this, Xanthocylum and pruners. And just to tell you, we also have a field gene bank. I have been managing the Prunus Africana Field Gene Bank for the last 15 years. It's in Nafori. And we have studied this. And when you see trees debunked, these are all just gold mines waiting for us to explore. And then local arrangements for control of bushfires is the biggest challenge in the parklands. And then a need for social enterprises to add value, and then the benefits flowing back to the communities. Can we link this to the Paris development model? As we conclude, sustaining Shea productivity and the industry requires recognizing the primary producers, especially women who have managed these resources for generations. And the benefits of the enterprises should trickle down to the local people. I remember Professor Branzoa pointing about fair trade. And alongside the advances in propagation that Daniel has talked about, there is a lot, our studies show that there's a lot of potential in managing the natural regeneration of Shea, because you have not been told a Shea seedling may take 2 years in the nursery, but the national regeneration, because of the established root system, there's a huge potential. And in Otuke and many places, in West Nile, there's very huge potential for natural regeneration. And then we need to tap into women and youth to undertake value addition. And then that will provide a pushback for conservation. An improvement in land and tree-tenure arrangements in the parklands will ensure sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kia, for wonderful discussion out there. Jasper keeps reoccurring that it's a lot of things that he's mentioning in the chat, and is giving a big hope that we shall have a state-of-the-art laboratories to support R&Ds if this project is sponsored. So there's a lot going on through the chat. Now, quickly, as I would like to give Catherine Kabahizi just maybe 2 minutes to say something quickly before I invite our next person to make executive summaries and discussion. Honorable Sylvia Akello. You're welcome, Catherine.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for moderating this session very well. Many thanks go to Avas and Church of Uganda, Makerere University, Professor J.B. Okulo, for all your work and great effort in putting this webinar together and finishing it successfully. We have really successfully celebrated the Shea nut trees today, and congratulations to all of us. We pray and hope that you can carry on these efforts and learn and actually implement from what you have learned today, and find a way to make the communities in our northern shea butter build, develop, and live well off their shea nut trees. I'm called Kadrin Kavahizi. I'm from the Center of Faith, Family and Justice in Uganda, which is a Christian think tank founded this year to inform evidence-based research, policy advocacy, and decision-making at the national, regional, international levels. Our main focus is to promote the development of a society with strong faith, family, and justice institutions. And promoting this Shea nut initiative is very important to us because this supports the families in all these communities. It promotes the development of Uganda, promotes the development of all stakeholders along the value chain. So congratulate you, Avas, and all stakeholders for celebrating the Shea nut tree today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Kadrin. Kadrin, Center of Faith, Family and Justice is one of the key stakeholders who are sponsoring this, facilitating the process of this Shea Tree Nut Day. Thank you so much, Kadrin. So quickly, we want to have, would like to have Honorable Sylvia Okello to make an exclusive summary on the different discussion that have been given. I would request to give her maybe 5 minutes to make this summary since time is gone, curfew time is almost clocking in already.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, are you hearing me?
Yeah, loud and
Hello?
clear, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Okello Sylvia. I'm a former member of parliament from Otuke district, and I come from Olilim sub-county. During my tenure of office, I've been promoting the issues of shea butter. I want to thank each and everyone for the active participation. However, what I want to echo most is the issue of commercial agriculture. Where we have areas of shea nut trees, we cannot do commercial agriculture because that would mean cutting all the trees to allow tractors to plow. So if we can adopt the idea of using ox plow, that would be very good because however many the shea trees are, they don't even affect crops. So I would advise the Ministry of Agriculture and also NEMA people to make sure we encourage the farmers who are also local communities where shea trees are to use ox plow. Secondly, I also want to encourage the researchers to look into the issues of climatic conditions. In most cases, there are some years when the climatic conditions change, you find that the fruits do not come out. What do we do as people who stay in the areas where there are shea trees that can allow the shea trees to always have the fruits on a yearly basis, irrespective of the climatic condition? These are some of the food for thought for our researchers to make sure we have the yield throughout the year on a yearly basis. I also want to emphasize mostly on the issues of bush burning. We know that most of the districts in Uganda that are on the belt of the shea tree also have these people who look after cows. And in most cases, they are the ones who tend to burn bushes so much. How can we really make sure the laws, the bylaws are there to avoid the issues of bush burning? Because sometimes they burn when the shea trees are flowering, sometimes they burn when they already have the fruit, and you find that most of those get lost. So we really need to do something very serious on the issues of bush burning. And this one, I also want to thank the organizers for allowing most women to participate in this discussion, because almost 80% of the activities are done by women and young people. However, most men are disastrous because when I talk about bush burning, it comes from men. When I talk about the issues of shaking, even the fruits, when they in the actual sense, they are supposed to fall on their own. But some people go and then they shake, so you find it even disorganizes the yield of our seeds. We also need to see how to talk to these very men who are fond of climbing the trees and shaking when the fruits when they are not ready, and at the end of it all, the yields are not very good. What do we do to make sure these men follow the rightful procedures of picking the shea fruits other than rushing to shake when it is not yet ready? Members, we are coming up with many products, but we, as members also said, we've not tackled all the products. When we have the shea fruits, we always enjoy the flesh so much. I wish we could also look into the areas of making the shea cake, because if we could have that, it would be very good. And above all, when you look at Uganda, when you go western, they have milk that they survive on and coffee. When you come to Central, they have coffee. But in northern Uganda, we used to rely on cotton and tobacco. But now that it is not there, can we ask the government to do zoning so that northern Uganda can have shea nuts as a part of their zoning areas for economic development, so that we are not always on the list or looked at as areas which is so impoverished? This would be very good if government takes it up to make sure that almost all the factories, the research centers that we are building, we build on the areas where these trees are grown. The issue of taking the factory to Kampala, taking the factory to Nakaseke, according to me, would not work out very well, because there are so many things that we can get as a byproduct. To the best of my knowledge, even the byproduct of the shea fruit, when you fry it just in your garden, it is also one of the manure. So I also want to say we should try to change and translate all the discussions. We can summarize and we translate in various languages. And if it is possible, we could ask radio stations and televisions so that people can understand exactly what we have talked about. You know, 2K, we have so many groups, but you find that the groups that we form are only in 30. And out of these 30, you find women are like 28 and only 2 men. Because men, in most cases, assume if you talk about oil, it is for cooking and it is women who use it. If you talk about cosmetics, it's women who love smearing, not knowing that it is actually a commercial thing that would improve the livelihood in each and every household. So to me, I would imagine we should do everything possible to talk to men, to make them also get involved in each and every step. And above all, I want to say in Uganda these days we have serious political turnover at all levels. So you find that the leaders that have come may not be having the knowledge of trying to make the bylaws on issues related to shea trees. However, I would request that from all the institutions that have been dealing on the issues of shea butter and shea trees, I would request that we also find time and we train our local leaders so that they are the ones who can talk about the issues also of preservation, protection, and also planting of our shea trees. I thank you so much for the time. However, I would have spoken a lot, but because of time, I want to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable, for those clear remarks. I know time has gone, but I would like to give just 1 minute to Ines Viedaman. She has really persisted from the beginning, and we just want to listen to something from her as well. Ines Viedaman. Okay, I cannot pronounce the name quite well.
Sorry, you really caught me by surprise.
Okay, it's okay, it's okay.
No
Just say
problem.
something.
Well, I was really honored that you added me to this meeting for GIZ. We try since about 2 years to work with a couple of stakeholders. We are in contact with Robert Abak and with private sector actors. And we did, and this was mentioned earlier, an international market study. This is somehow shared in the system. So please, everybody who would like to have a look at it, you can approach me. I can share. This is not a problem. But I think it is what is really necessary. Maybe this can be the start. This meeting, really, there was a suggestion from somebody, just come up with a WhatsApp group or something like this, that people start sharing information. So, because I know everybody, there's here an organization, here is an NGO, here's somebody else who's doing something in Share, but it's not really coming together at one place. So I think this is really lacking. So if Ugandan Share wants to have a larger share from the world market, if we want to be compatible in any way, shape or form with the West Africans, we have to come together. There is no way around that one. But apart from that one, thank you very much. And well, curfew time is waiting. So everybody stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inen. Thank you so much. Now, just for conclusion purposes, I would like to invite Professor J.B. Okulo to close this session, sir.
Thank you. Thomas, am I okay?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, I would like to thank you very much for the good ICT work that has brought us here. And I would like to thank all participants. Let me start with the last speaker. Ennis has been very useful. Most people may not know. He was with GIZ. He has been building the capacity of the Share people and has helped us. And that's why you have seen now the Terraria Nilotica coming up. I would like to appreciate that effort which has brought us here, although we still have a long way to move, but the beginning is there. I would like to appreciate others, plus the Center for Justice, for really teaming up with us and Makerere University to make sure we have this webinar. And it has been very wonderful hearing a lot of discussion. Time did not permit, there were a lot of people raising hands, and I know from here we may need a sort of a page where we get all this information. But I would like to promise all the participants and others that we shall compile this information into a document that people can use. We want the Share industry to move. We want the community to move. And I would, the suggestion made on the Share Research Institute, very, very good. And I think, let us take the PDM, Paris Development Model. This is an opportunity. Nobody can stop that. Politicians, academicians, community workers, local government need to know that Share is in black and white, is included as a commodity crop and a Paris Development Model. So we need to team up with respective people, and I would like to bring appreciation and thankful from the Minister for Northern Uganda, Honorable Freedom rather. And she's traveling. I think after this, we need to have some documents, get the public sector involved, get the private sector, we continue involving private sector, we continue involving public sector, individuals, so that let us be open. Let us share the information as this meeting has brought up. Let us be open. Those who know more, please come up so that we can build the industry together. I thank you. I hope everybody will move well. The curfew time is there for those who are moving. We pray everybody reach well and we meet. God bless you all.
Thank you so much and bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Good day, everyone.
Thomas, thanks for organizing.
Thank you very much for all of the information. It's been a great help.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye to all.
Oh,